Welcome, everyone, to What the Force. I'm Marie-Claire Gould, your host.
And I'm Missy.
And we are following Willow. This is our weekly deep dive show into the amazing Disney Plus show, Willow. And it has been, I don't know, life-changing?
What is this show, Marie-Claire?
Yes, what is this show, Missy? What is this show? It feels, I think I described it like it's so strange to have been seen, heard, and understood to the level that this show is presenting its message.
Exactly.
We cover the show Willow from a mythic, meta, fairy tale perspective. And we are so excited to fangirl about this episode and also give you all of the juicy details. Before we get started, I just want to thank everyone for the support of the show. It has actually been at times quite overwhelming how much people are loving it. It's been really, really great.
Thank you. We love you back.
Yes, we love you back. Just a reminder, if you're not sick of my voice by this point, I also cover Star Wars. I also cover all sorts of other types of media when I have time on What the Fiction. And I'm actually part of a D&D podcast. There's a Venn diagram of fans in the Willow fandom that also seem to like D&D. It's called Tavern Tales. I've been doing it for 5 years with my husband and a bunch of friends, and it's really, really well edited and funny and cute. And I think you will like how much of an idiot I play only on the podcast, not actually here on this show, I hope. Also, make sure to like and subscribe. It really does keep you up to date with the show, as well as show your support for the show on all sorts of different types of social media. It helps generate buzz for Willow, as well as for What the Force. It keeps up the conversation longer as well. Okay, speaking of support for Willow, we need a season 2.
Yeah, we really desperately need a season 2. So let's get out there and promote, folks.
Yeah, Missy and I are like throwing around ideas on what we could possibly do. We'll talk about those hopefully next episode. The last one, maybe doing something more live. That would be fun, I think.
That'd be cool if we could pull it off.
Yeah. But yeah, get out there, be loud, because that's the best way to get the love of this show out to people. So if you're loud on the internet, thank you. If you're loud in your neighbor's ear about the show, thank you. If you're loud in your friends and family's ears about this, thank you. Yes, that's what we want. All right. Let's talk a little bit about what meta-mythic perspective means, because I think that some people get confused about what I'm talking about or what we're trying to do with the show. So we're going to talk about the mythical, fairy tale, psychological meaning of what the characters are going through within the experiences of the episode. We really do try not to speculate too much unless we're pretty sure that's where the themes, where the threads are leading us. But it's also really important to say this is much like what we've talked about in the past from a meta perspective, in that the things that the characters are going through are also things that we ourselves can see ourselves in the characters going through. And so it's not just that we're going to be talking about the characters, we're also going to be talking about things that we ourselves may experience. And this is all done incredibly symbolically. And I have this really good quote from Joseph Campbell, which is, "Every myth is psychologically symbolic. Its narratives and images are to be read, therefore, not literally, but as metaphors." And so within this, I do have a sort of warning for audience members that may suffer or have experienced depression. This episode of Willow dealt with this directly. And so as a psychological element, we're going to be talking about depression. There is themes throughout the entire episode. And so if this is something that's a little bit hard for you, proceed with caution. But narrative is a great way for you to explore these thoughts symbolically, and might be a way for you to eat your own shadow if you haven't actually made it out of your own night sea journey. And we're going to get to that with the Shattered Sea. All right, let's move on to comments and questions for us.
All right, our first question comes from Simona. And I was wondering what books you would recommend to start with archetypes and mythological symbolism. I find the podcast incredibly fascinating and was wondering where I could learn more about all that. Sending much love. Thank you so much. This is something we love to talk about. Marie-Claire, what kind of books and sources do you recommend?
So a lot of what we have established in our Western understanding of archetypes and symbolism comes from Jungian psychology. And that is a wide topic. He does go into archetypes throughout almost all of his psychology. And so starting anywhere with Jung is actually a really good place. So that's Carl Jung, the psychologist. Joseph Campbell took Jungian psychology and, took what he liked out of it and is using it to understand mythology across the globe with sort of this monomythic ideal. And so he also is a great place to start from an archetype and mythological symbolism perspective, specifically because he drills into mythological symbolism. I also really, really appreciate Marie-Louise von Franz, who analyzed fairy tales with a Jungian psychology lens. She was one of his pupils and is really amazing. For this show in particular, I'm also using The Uses of Enchantment, which is by Bruno Bettelheim. And I also really like Robert Bly's works, especially to do with masculine psychology, and a little book on the human shadow, which I have quoted in previous episodes. And of course, there is the Queen, Clarissa Piccola Estes, Women Who Run with the Wolves, which I recommend everybody read. It's thick, though. Be warned.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, and The Heroine's Journey, Maureen Burdock. So much. Go ahead. Sorry, you got more. You've got more.
Yeah, I know. You've got a nice big stack of books already, but I have more to add to that stack. So there's a few that I really like. As I mention all the time, I really love In Search of the Swan Maiden, a narrative on folklore and gender by...
I'm still reading it.
I know. Barbara Foss-Levy.
I can't say it was mine because it was yours. You're the one who's been bugging me to read it for years. So
that's okay. That's okay. No, but it's excellent. I do recommend it. And what's interesting is one of the things you'll find as you start to read more of this stuff is you will develop your own perspective and your own opinions, and you will find that you don't always agree with everything that each of these different thinkers says in their books, and that's okay. That's a great thing, actually.
I don't agree with Campbell a lot of the time, but
right.
He has some good points, and he's a great place to start.
Yeah, exactly. So that's just something to keep in mind, is that, these are people who spent a lifetime studying this stuff, and they can help you learn and understand so much. But ultimately, you're going to come to your own conclusions, and you're going to bring something of yourself to the conversation. And that's really, really awesome.
And what do I have to say about that? Okay, you need to digest this stuff. So
yes.
As you read, no matter who you are, you cannot just read it. You actually have to experience consuming it, thinking about it, and then transforming it. I do this through this podcast, and with Missy's help, we discuss things. And so it ends up coming into me and getting out, and thus ends up being different and more full in my own mind. And so if you need to journal, if you need to blog, if you need to write a story, if you need to paint artwork and consume it, but then transform it, it will become better. It will become more part of you than just reading alone. That is the one thing that I think people don't do correctly when they're trying to understand this stuff.
Yeah. The purpose of psychology is not to understand stories. The purpose of stories is to understand psychology. So I think that's really what it is. And mostly it's to understand yourself. This should all be about self-knowledge. Arguably, and I don't remember who said it, but all knowledge is self-knowledge. So that's what you're trying to do, is you're trying to know yourself as much as possible. So all of these books are great. There are more. And
I mean, it's a lifetime journey. Power of Myth. Power of Myth is a great place to start. If you're like, I'm not a reader, go Go watch Power of Myth with Bill Moyer. Or read the transcripts on billmoyer.com. That's a really great place to start. It's the fundamentals of Campbell after a lifetime of Campbell. Like, he wrote Hero with 1,000 Faces in 1949. He changed and developed a new respect for women by the time he did Power of Myth.
Yeah. Yeah. And we know that he was sharing some of those thoughts with George Lucas as Willow was being created. So
yeah. And of course,
that's cool.
Yeah, Ron Howard and yeah, we know that they had dinner together.
Yeah, exactly. It's so cool. And I guess the only other thing I want to mention, just because it is relevant to the conversations that we've had about this show specifically, is in our Maiden to Mage segment that we talk about, that is actually drawn from a website called helpingwritersbecomeauthors.com. I know that sounds like completely random. Where did you find this thing, Missy? It's like, are you sure that this is a reliable source? I'm going to say it is. This is the author of this site is K.M. Weiland. And what appeals to me about this site, and the reason that Marie Claire and I feel comfortable using it, is all of her sources that she's used to delve into these archetypes are the same ones we just listed to you.
And she's written a book. She has written a book. Yeah, it's called Creating Character Arcs. And so, like, highly recommend that too. It's coming to me because I wanted to own it.
Nice. I need to order it too. But yeah, so like that's a big one. We'll make sure to link you to it. Just so everyone knows, that's the source here is this website that, again, pulls from all the same books that we use anyway. So it dovetails very well with what we like to talk about. All right. Second comment. You ready? All right. So this one comes from Aaliyah. And this is, I think the crone was telling the truth that she's the princess of Kashmir who betrayed everyone to worship the worm generations ago. So it'd be very ironic if Princess Kit unwittingly admired the crone. And this is assuming maybe that the crone story is the same as Princess Taramis, who we said was similar to Merida from Brave, way back in episode 1. If so, interested in your mythic meta-analysis about this, thank you. Great question. Love it. What do we think about the crone? Is she telling the truth? So how much of the truth is she telling?
The best way to tell a lie is to make it mostly true. And yeah, I totally think that all of the Kashmirian tales are connected in one way or another. And the world is not that big that they wouldn't have heard news of a princess being stolen or something more recent. And so it does feel like it could have been a long, long time ago in a country far away.
I was wondering if you were going to say that.
Or once upon a time, right? And this is how sort of mythic things happen, right? Somebody told a story and then it got adapted or transformed creative mythology-wise into the mythology or into the words of today. I've actually done a crazy amount of analysis on the manga Hanayori Dango. We covered a show called F for Thailand, which is the 7th time this manga has been adapted in different cultures across Asia. So Japan, Korea, Thailand, Taiwan, China, like all over the place, and also an anime. Like it transformed and iterated every single time, but still told the grain of truth. And so it's almost like a really fascinating way to understand how these things can even transform. But also, what is the truth? Well, the crone probably knows what the truth is, but does it even matter if the grains and the archetypes and the lessons were still there? It's interesting.
And to the point about, wouldn't it be interesting if Kit admired her in a way? She probably will. She probably does to some extent. I think that the crones, what does she say she wants, right? She said, I want freedom. And I think that her freedom and refusal to follow the rules will be very appealing to Kit and to Allura and to other characters. I think that that's very true.
Yeah, there's some really interesting things happening in this episode all over the place. And I don't even know if we're going to be able to really truthfully do all of them justice. I'm a little worried.
We'll do our best.
We'll do our best.
Okay, so Interestingly, though, the last comment actually again kind of goes right off of this one. Says this is from Mouseling.
Yeah. Or Izzy on Twitter. Yeah.
Izzy. Okay. Sorry. Do you think Allura or Kit will be tempted next episode, as in the Crone might try to convert her or Kit?
Absolutely.
Definitely. Especially Allura.
Yeah.
Especially Allura. Mm-hmm.
There's going to be
and
something.
She'll be vulnerable to that.
Yeah. And there's something that's going to fundamentally need to happen for Allura to actually be, kind of at her peak, which is she has to fully embrace all of her emotions and the things that she's been denying herself.
Yep.
So that doesn't bode well for a certain sad, angry frown prince, but we will see.
Oh no, we'll get to that. No worries. Or lots of worries. One fear. All right.
So those are our questions, and we want to thank you again for submitting those. There was a bunch more, and unfortunately, we just know that this episode is going to be so long. So we just, want to be careful about people's ears and timing and everything like that. But if you do want to submit a comment or a question for me and Missy, feel free in the link in the forum in the liner notes. Okay? Cheers. All right, let's move on to Maiden and Mage, Missy. I think it's good. Let's reset everybody, because some people might not remember what this is all about.
Yes. So Maiden to Mage, again, is our archetypal framework for character journeys over a lifetime. So this idea is, instead of having just a hero's journey, in fact, we have different journeys for each phase of life, and each one naturally leads into the next. And they are in order: Maiden, Hero, Queen, King, Crone, and Mage. And each one has its healthy aspect, which is the ones we just named, as well as two shadow aspects, a passive and an aggressive. And so this way, as a character progresses through their life, or as you progress through your own life, you may find yourself falling into one of these archetypes and going on these journeys where you have to learn something in order to progress to the next stage of your life, or become trapped in the shadow. So that is the framework that we're using. Again, that comes from, we were mentioning K.M. Weiland, author, and all of these wonderful books that we recommended. So this episode, we had a lot going on.
Everybody transforms. And there's a reason
a lot of
for
movement.
it, which I will get to in the Mythic area. But this is good. This is good. We want, it's episode 7 of 8. We want to see transformations happening.
It's cool. It's really cool. And they're different types of transformations. That's the neat thing. It's like no two characters are experiencing the same journey, which is very, very cool. And just, again, to repeat, what is this show? Like, how are they taking an ensemble cast of this size and giving them all their own really good, meaty journeys to go on? It's wild.
Lots of forests, lots of caves, lots of seas, lots of...
Yep.
Sorry, just no.
So
I
much.
mean, they're literally using the symbolism of transformation, and they're allowing people to be on different scales and paces. It's wild, and it's done in such a sophisticated way. I'm blown away. Like, it's so good.
Yeah, it's amazing. So with that said, let's get into it. So we're going to start with Allura, who, as we've mentioned, is currently in her hero phase, in her hero archetype. She is moving closer to becoming queen. The final steps of the hero arc before becoming queen is that they must allow their ego to die. They must die in some way, whatever it is that's holding them back. And then they have a resurrection. So they reemerge, resurrected, having learned from the death experience. And then ultimately they use the knowledge then to vanquish the dragon and return with the elixir. So where she is in this, when she has, and we'll get to this, no worries, but when she has the fall at the end, the leap of faith, the fall with Kit, that is, she's allowing her fearful self to die in that fall. That is her death experience. And then she resurrects on the shores of the immemorial city. And now she's going in to vanquish the dragon, or as she put it, kill the witch, or so she believes.
Or so she believes.
So, so she should be a queen by the end of next episode.
Absolutely.
If all goes well. We will see. So that's Allura. Next, we have Kit, and we haven't really talked about Kit's journey yet.
I know. And
so
we
excited for
said,
her.
we're like, hey, Kit's due for a rebirth.
She is. She is. Let's go, Kit. And thankfully, she's a hero now.
Yay!
She is out of her maiden phase. Girl has finally,
She's like shaky. She has to be held. She has to be fed. She's a baby hero at the start. And then she goes through all of this really cool stuff, which we're going to go through
so great
in this episode. And yeah, Kit's journey has been so good to watch. From somebody who, like, you and I were like, yeah, she's a little bit frustrating at the beginning.
She's so annoying at the beginning of the show. Like, I genuinely understand people that can't stand her, but she's also had the most interesting dynamic journey so far. It's been great.
Hell, do you love women? This show loves women.
Really? Like, they're so messy and like flawed, and it's great.
And allowed to want things.
Yes.
Oh my
awesome.
gosh. Yeah, no, so, I mean, we'll talk about it in the show, but yes, she is a hero, and she totally takes on that mantle throughout this whole episode. So it's great.
Right. And there's, as we said, part of moving from maiden to hero is being able to differentiate oneself from the parents and mentors. And we know she's had a lot of struggle with that. She's been associating herself with Sorsha constantly. I'm Kit Tantalus, Sorsha's daughter, all the time. And then, obviously last episode, just really preoccupied with, I'm Mad Madigan's daughter, and I have to, find him and carry on his legacy and all this other stuff. Right? Well, this episode, two things happen that demonstrate that she has moved past that. One is when Jade says to her that the choice to return is hers, not Sorsha's.
Yep.
She acknowledges that Kit will make that decision herself, and it is not her mother's place to decide. And that's how you know that Kit has progressed beyond the parents and mentors. And the other one is that even though she's carrying Mad Mardigan's sword, she doesn't refer back to his sort of command, or his command given by Allagash that you must protect Elora Danan. She goes with Elora because she believes in her, not because of her father's quest, because of what she thinks is right.
I'm literally getting shivers. It's so good.
I love her. I love her. Protect Princess Kit. I love her so much. So Kit, yes, also now a hero. Yay! So next we have Eric. And again, we haven't really been able to talk about him in Maiden to Mage yet, but he had a little bit of movement. Not really in a good direction, but he still had some movement.
He was a damsel.
He was a damsel, which again, for just a reminder to everyone, the damsel is the passive form of the maiden. It means that, they're just going to sit there.
And you could use child instead of maiden if you want
that
to.
Works.
But yeah, it's effectively that you're under the control of your parents, and you're easily captured by those who have power.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But in the course of this episode, he becomes a vixen. Now, the vixen is the aggressive form of the maiden, the aggressive shadow for the maiden. And to clarify, vixen does not refer necessarily to sexual anything. It is really specifically about you're still dependent, but you are serving another power. You are now exchanging something of yourself to serve this other power. So he has given up his free will. He goes to Crone and he says, I'll do anything you want. He has exchanged himself to serve her.
For those Star Wars fans in the audience, Ben Solo turning into Kylo Ren is a vixen.
Yep. Yes. Lots of vixens in Star Wars, actually. Feel free to listen to our Dark Feminine episode to learn more about them. There's a ton of them.
There is a ton of them.
So then, next, moving on, who's excited? Willow finally had some movement this episode, too. Yay!
Yay, Willow!
It only took 7 episodes, but he finally got out of hermit.
Like, we knew it would take him a lot, and we knew he needed some heroic intervention, and like half the crew was still babies for half of this quest, so it was really, really hard for them to... It's always the hero that pulls the mentor out of being a hermit, and it's like, it took a lot.
It did. It took a while, but he's not a hermit anymore. Now he's a healthy crone, and he's moving toward mage. Now, similar but not exactly the same to a hero, the final steps of the crone's experience is to confront death. Specifically, they actually go on a pilgrimage to the underworld. they must pay the ferryman, cross the River Styx, and journey into the underworld, all while taking care of their young charges.
And guess what happened this episode?
Guess what happened in this episode? So to that end, I'm actually going to read a couple quotes from, as I mentioned, this website, which the KM Wyland one, where we talk about what the Crone's journey is. So it says, in the end, the Crone's true transformation is not the decision to die as it was for the king. Rather, her crucial decision is to live again, to rise up and leave the underworld rather than accept the temptation of old age's slow, resigned, comfortable descent into nothing. In so rising, she symbolically raises the entire kingdom with her, if not directly, at least by revealing the possibility and the way.
Oh, this is so important. Oh, God. Can I talk about it for a second?
Please do.
The return from the underworld is something that is sorely lacking from a story perspective, and then thus the freedom to live in North American media. And the freedom to live involves passing the elixir on to the next generation, but also allowing that elixir to heal the community that you return to. In the American monomyth, which primarily is like Westerns, superhero stories, things like that, people tend to die in a sacrificial, heroic manner and then never come back to live with the community. In Westerns, they tend to go off into the sunset because they've committed so much violence, they can never be reintegrated into the community. And so I'm really loving Willow because it's not only giving us an alternative to the American monomyth, which Campbell would completely love and agree with and is very George Lucasian, but also it is giving us an alternative story for people who maybe struggle under patriarchal masculinity. And this is a very new masculinity that we are seeing.
Yeah. And to your point earlier about how so much of this episode is about depression, what this means is that, yes, this episode is about journeying into the underworld. This is depression. But the next episode is about the journey back. We are going to see how do you come back out of that. And that's why the Crone's journey is so critical to storytelling and why we really should see more of them.
We're talking about Willow Crone, not Hot Crone.
Yes, sorry for clarity. Willow, the Crone archetype, not the Crone. Which, by the way, the Crone, we have to talk about her too. She's not a Crone in terms of archetype, but yeah.
But Willow's journey is so important. And the fact that he's been taking care of these babies and have nurtured them all individually into heroes and healthy heroes for the most part, or I hope we see, like, is really wonderful.
Yeah. It's amazing. And
this is like Warwick Davis's finest work.
It really, really is. I'm just so delighted that he came back and did this. I'm so glad that the creators gifted us with this amazing show because it's awesome.
New Willow.
I know. Yay. Renew Willow. Yeah. So the last
Hot Crone.
Hot Crone. I guess the last.
Okay. So her name is listed as Lily in the credits, but she's totes the crone.
And I just want to mention, just on the off chance, and I don't think it's likely, but on the off chance they decide that she's not necessarily the crone, but she's like a servant of the crone or the priestess of the crone, it doesn't matter because effectively her role in the story is the same. So I think we can call her Hot Crone, and we're still right, even if for some reason they end up being separate entities. I'm not concerned about it.
Oh no, it's totally her.
I think it's definitely her. I think it's 100% her. I'm just saying that if for some reason it's like I said, yeah, it's still the same. It doesn't.
No, I mean, in the story, she fulfills the same purpose. And hey, if you were writing a story and you're like, I wanted to have a servant of the crone and a crone, you can have both.
Yeah, exactly. So
you can have a wicked witch and a person that is in the role of the wicked witch. We talked about how you can have somebody who is fulfilling the duties of the queen, like Sorsha, with Ballantyne, who's actually somebody else because they're just on the orders of the other person.
Exactly. So the crone, Hot Crone, Withered Crone, whatever we're calling her, is not actually a crone archetype. She is actually a aggressive shadow version of the mage archetype, which is called a sorcerer. So the mage has two shadows. It's the miser and the sorcerer. Miser's passive. sorcerer is aggressive. And a sorcerer basically seeking power over death. They are so terrified of death that they will try to dominate all life in order to conquer death. So
there's
Emperor
a really
Palpatine.
Good. Yeah, I was going to say it's Sheev Palpatine.
It's Sheev Palpatine. Exactly.
That guy. He wants to control the entire universe and the Force to avoid dying.
Right. Yes. So they want to have total all-consuming power. So it's also Sauron, whatever. Like these are those like the great villains of all mythology are these characters that have so much power that they believe that they can control all life and death, and not through embracing death, but by conquering it. And so this is what the Crone is. And there are a lot of hints in this episode about that. When she says nothing lasts forever, and she sounds a little wistful. She also doesn't like rules at all. Kashmir had too many rules. And there's a number of other moments that really suggest that she's trying to conquer all, including death.
Yes.
So
it's absolutely, and people have actually literally pinged me and said, okay, Marie Claire, are you also up for Crone-dention? And i.e. redemption for the Crone? And yes, of course I am.
Always.
Always.
Crone-demption.
Crone-demption. Hot Crone. Crone-demption. We're here for it. Yes. All right. Anything else, Missy, before we get into mythic inspiration, parallels, and themes?
No, I'm so excited. Let's do it.
All right. What is our first one? We're going to talk about the Night Sea journey, which as soon as I saw that we were heading towards the ocean and what it is, I immediately started to pre-research because it's a quite a hard concept to kind of wrap your head around. Do you see them? What exactly is happening? So this is actually a quote from Jung: sails over the sea like an immortal god who every evening is immersed in the maternal waters and is born anew in the morning. The sun goes down, analogous to loss of energy in a depression, is the necessary prelude to rebirth. Cleansed in the healing waters, the unconscious, the sun, ego, consciousness lives again. So that's the concept of the Night Sea journey. It is effectively a road of trials. Once you have gone into the unknown, it also will share a lot of similarities to going into a labyrinth or a maze. These are all very psychological, subconscious immersion experiences by which there is no road, there is no path, there is no way for you to know which way is up, down, sideways. You get lost, you lose yourself. And this is the symbolic way we can tell that we are breaking down our ego. So the part of us that thinks they know who we are and are ready to be reformed once we have completely broken and shattered. And it wears away at you like water does. Water is the subconscious, and they're skimming the surface. They're skimming the surface until they're completely worn down. There's a concept called liminality, which is a part of transformational experiences, especially it's part of anthropological understanding of rights. So as an example, I'm a person that is on the cusp of adulthood. I'm a teenager who's about to become an adult. You experience this sense of liminality. Liminal spaces physically are transitional periods of time, but psychologically that happens to you as well, where you feel like you don't know where you are and what you're doing and you feel lost. And it's just it's absolutely important for us to psychologically go through this. Clarissa Piccola Estes would also talk about how this is like the period of time where you're waiting to be reborn, your bones, your nothingness. You know, you've literally shrunk to nothingness. Campbell again with the clinch. Here's a great quote. It is by going down into the abyss that we recover the treasures of life. Where you stumble, there lies your treasure. And so it is depression, the flatness, the feeling of being lost, the not knowing where you're going to go is absolutely a metaphor for depression. And they are all depressed by the end of this episode. But it's also how you recover is by going into the deepest, darkest part of yourself and facing that darkness. Did that all make sense?
That was beautiful.
Awesome. So this is a hard episode, I think, for a lot of people. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful episode.
Stunning.
And I've never seen a better version of a Night Sea journey, ever.
Yeah, it's remarkable.
It's glorious. This leads me into asking us what the Shattered Sea is. Because it's not really a sea, is it? It's more like a swamp.
It is a sea, but it's other things as well. So a few things to keep in mind here. So a sea is a few things. It's water, therefore it's reflective, and therefore it's a mirror. And this one especially, being flat and shallow, is more a mirror than perhaps another sea might be.
A mirror also, to see what?
Well, we're getting there. But we see this done in a very literal way. What I like about this is that this interpretation of what the Shattered Sea is actually very clear in the subtext, in the visuals. We see what is above constantly reflected in the water of the Shattered Sea. We see it all the time, over and over again. It's done in the most beautiful, beautiful way.
It's a gorgeous metaphor.
So it is. It's a gorgeous metaphor. And so what we know these characters are encountering on this journey is themselves. Mm-hmm. They're facing themselves. That's why they're all depressed, is because they're all facing their own shadows, their own baggage. And so that's what's in the mirror, is they're seeing themselves. And so that's important. Then there's also the fact that in mythology, there is no differentiation between sea and sky. They are often used interchangeably. Sky is sea is sky, same thing. This is why you have, like whales flying in the sky or what,
in dreams.
It's the same.
In dreams.
Right.
And dreams are the language of your personal myth.
Right. And this is particularly important because sea creatures and celestial creatures are interchangeable. And we've talked before about how Allura is a celestial creature. Mm-hmm. And we get that, again, pretty literal with the visuals in this episode, with the scene with her and Kit and the starry sky.
The starry sky.
Oh, that scene is so gorgeous. I just could stare at it forever.
What each of us must seek in his life, neither was land or sea. It is something out of his unique potentiality for experience, something that never has been, never could be experienced by anybody else. Yeah.
It's great. So it's amazing. So it is a mirror. It is sea. It is sky. It is all these things. And when I say it's sky, this is where I want to kind of come back to our point about earth and sky and the relationship between the two. We have Allura in this space where she's surrounded by stars and she's gazing up at the stars. She's not looking down. She's looking up and talking about her aspirations and how she wanted to be a princess. All right. She wants to ascend. Mm-hmm. That's her heart's desire. And then we have Graydon, who is communing with this creature in the mud, under the water,
Mudmander,
under the earth, the Mudmander. And he's communing with this, and he's always kind of crouching down next to it, and he's feeding it and he's nurturing it. And so what we have here is, I believe, and we'll talk about later, our expectations based on his journey, but he's going to descend into the other world to save them all. I know. While Allura is going to ascend as the Empress.
Because so they're opposites.
Yep. They will be an underworld king and a celestial queen.
Oh, babies.
That's where we're headed, folks. I'm sorry.
My poor babies. I did want to just call out that, we've already talked about how night sea journeys are, you're entering into the subconscious, and that's why it's super depressing, especially when you get stuck in your own mud. Your own mud. But mirrors are deeply psychological, right? So this is only by entering this dreamlike state of the night sea journey can you actually face the true mirror and see yourself clearly. So amazing. Like, they're using all of the tools in the storytelling toolbox. I can't tell you how important symbolism is. You can see it for yourself in this episode when the sound design, the music, the cinematography, everything just plays up and plays into the experience. The story resonates on a next level. This is transcendent. All right. Any other thoughts on what the Shattered Sea is? Because we were shattered by it.
Yeah, no, I think that's it. And the other thing I meant, as we get later into the episode, I do want to call up a couple of other mythic parallels that we've mentioned in past episodes. So just keep in mind that the Shattered Sea is a mirror, and we'll come back to that.
Awesome. Let's talk about a different sort of mirror. Twins. All right. Twins are really important because they are sets and they mirror each other, either in a way that shows a equal opposite reflection or in a way that is identical and thus more powerful. There's actually a parallel to a mythological sense of twins that I have in mind. But twins are commonplace, like especially from a mythic perspective, to either be identical or equal and opposites. Apollo and Artemis, the sun and the moon. And sometimes characters or how these archetypes are used in a way that to say that these opposites are actually in union with each other. And sometimes they're used in a way to say that they're supporting one another. It kind of just depends on the story. Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on twins before I get into divine twins?
Oh no, I'm excited to talk about twins because of the fact that it's a twist. It's not who you would think it is.
Yeah. So the divine twins, in my opinion, in this episode are Elora and Kit. And this goes back to Proto-European mythology, Sumerian, etc., where there is a pair of divine twins that sail across the sea in a golden boat where they bring the rising sun each morning. During the day, they cross during the nocturne night in pursuit of their consort, the morning star. And eventually they end up, this myth kind of transforms, and eventually they start to ride a coach, a horse-drawn chariot that brings them to the Isle of the Blessed, which has in its possession a magical apple orchard. So in this, it is not Kit and Eric that are the divine twins. It is the two sisters, Elora and Kit. And their experiences are the reason that the coach gets where it needs to get to through the night of depression on the night sea journey.
So beautiful. Their relationship has developed so gorgeously. I've just been so surprised and delighted by how that has come about.
There are other pairs that we're going to be talking about throughout the story. Of course, Kit and Eric, right? But they're less of a focus than Graydon and Elora, Hot Crone and Eric, and how those two couples relate. Mm-hmm. And of course, Kit and Elora as they are adoptive sisters. Right. And they become real sisters by the end, which is also amazing. All right. We have two other themes which we have mentioned in previous episodes, and we'll just be very brief on those as well. Thirst and consumption. Missy, you did this amazing thread on thirst.
Well, thank you. It was just something I wasn't able to organize my thoughts on.
I'll link to it in the liner notes.
Yeah, thank you. But I was able to hopefully get it together for this episode. But it's interesting because they did expand on it in this episode, and we really got to see it kind of come to fruition, so to speak. Ha ha ha. But what we're talking about here is thirst as represented in a series of stories called The Fruit Maiden. And so this is a lot of folklore around the world has stories like this, sometimes called the Orange Maiden, although the type of fruit varies widely. The most famous version is from the Pentamerone, which is called The Love for the Three Oranges. There's also an opera about it. So you can feel free to look it up. But basically the gist of it is that a prince cuts open 3 oranges And the first two, a fairy bride comes out of each one, begging, dying of thirst, begging for water. And for whatever reason, he does not give her the water and she dies. So this happens twice. And then the third time he gives that bride water and then she becomes his wife. But before she becomes his wife, before they can be married, she is replaced by a false bride and impersonated. And then she is usually killed in some way and is reborn in another fruit tree. And the next time he cuts into an orange, the true bride emerges. And so why do I bring up this fairy tale? Because ultimately the message of this story is thirst is instinct. It is desire. It is seeking truth. You're thirsty for the truth, for something real. And
purpose.
And if you deny your hunger and your thirst for long enough, you will try to slake that thirst with a false remedy. Denial will consume you. That is what will happen. And that's what we see in the last two episodes, especially this episode, is Eric specifically, other characters too, but Eric most obviously, trying to resist his true desires, what he really wants for so long.
Purpose.
That he breaks and he takes the false bride.
Okay, that was so much more eloquent than my American president quote.
I love your American president quote.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So this theme of thirst continues and it is psychological as hell. Yeah.
It is fascinating. And it happens throughout.
It plays into all of the horniness of this episode. Too.
Yes, it absolutely does. Oh my god.
Can we just say that like up the top? I was like, I was trying to be good. And then they gave me this episode and now I have to talk about people being horny on my podcast again.
Oh, come on. It's our favorite kind of show.
No, this show was like built in a lab for you and I. It's amazing.
I know, it really was.
All right, let's talk briefly about consumption. Consumption is continuing. So that is hunger, being consumed, being eaten. It shows up all over the place. And we will continue that conversation as we hit different points within the episode. I think it's being kind of thematically represented as whatever the worm represents in the show. Mm-hmm. It's really interesting. I haven't fully locked it down and we've been seeing it since the first episode. So yeah, let's dig into this episode finally. All right. I just have one little tidbit before we dig into the episode and, you know, as what happens in it. On the Willow book, I've noticed this, and I just want to talk about it ever so briefly. Under the symbol of, like, the writing of Willow, there is a tree. Is that the world tree? Is that the grove?
That would make sense.
And it has branches that reach to the sky and roots that dig down. It's the equivalent of the Prime Jedi in The Last Jedi. It is the balance of Anduin.
Earth and sky.
Earth and
As
sky.
Above, so below.
Oh, hey, we have a balance theme happening. Cool. I just wanted to shout that out because I've noticed it and I haven't talked about it. So, all right, we start out with Lily and Eric. And she's saying, how long have you been here? It's like the sun never sets. This day never ends. And to your point before, it will eventually. Nothing lasts forever.
Mm-hmm. And this sounds very cynical of her. And it makes me wonder, you know, what is she talking about? Love? Life? Was she betrayed?
I have thoughts from a mythic perspective.
Mm-hmm. Let's hear it.
When the sun sets, it is swallowed in myth.
Ah, yes.
And then they both drink.
Yep.
From the goo.
Crone juice.
The elixir. I guess, is it refined? Is it not refined? Is it just straight vermiscous goo? I don't know. They made it look super pretty. I don't know. It's
all
sparkly.
like iridescent and stuff. I know.
Yeah. They ask what it is. You know, what is it? I don't know. It just tastes good.
Mm-hmm. There's also a lot of very off-kilter camera angles throughout this sequence, which I thought was very cool. I mean, it definitely leaves you very off balance a lot.
And we have an exchange of information. Your digits in a way. We never learn her name. It's really interesting. Kashmir. Where are you from, Kashmir? I'm from Tears Lean. Actually, I'm a prince. And then she immediately girl bosses. Listen,
Right away.
Chauncey McSleazoid. I'm not some palace ditz, wink like your dove, rolling in the hay. Literally the words that Kit used to accuse Allura of what him and her were doing.
Yep.
And Lily sounds like Allura.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh.
She's very deliberately meant to parallel Allura in a lot of ways. Her costume is very similar. Her pants are very similar to Allura's pants and everything. A lot of what she says, just the way that the two of them are framed together, it's pretty consistent and very deliberate. She is Dark Allura, basically.
Yes, absolutely. And Eric tries to explain who Dove is. And he starts to say, she works in the kit. She's great. And I wrote down to myself, this is what you say when you don't really like somebody that much.
Yeah,
that you're dating.
Yeah.
Yep. Eric says, monsters, this city, they brought me to it. Okay. Flash to Kit drowning in the vermiscus goo. I think we can confirm that this is vermiscus goo.
Oh, definitely.
At this point, it's not just water and there's like a vermiscus crust. They're both in the goo. And Eric sees Kit in the pool and so dives in to go and get there. And so the vermiscus is like the worm
a portal.
blood.
Yeah.
This also makes me think that maybe all of these gateways, doorways, goo pools are connected.
Yeah, it certainly could be. Everything is a door to the world between worlds. Anyway, but I just want to give Eric some credit here. You know, poor guy, we rag on him a lot, but he did not hesitate. His last interaction with Kit was very bad. She was mean to him. And he sees her and jumps right in immediately without hesitation. So I just want to be clear that this scene was important in terms of if they're going to be actively in combat next episode, the outcome of that is hinted by the fact that he's willing to try to save her the instant he realizes that she's in trouble without even knowing what's really going on. So I just wanted to say that. But yes, the hands.
This is the only point that we get the twin symbolism between them because they're both in the womb at the same time. And so it's reminding us as the audience and themselves that they have this connection that goes back to their beginning. And Kit is pulled out by Allura, reborn
But the hands, the camera rotates.
Oh, it rotated. Yeah.
It starts with Kit below, Eric above, and then it flips.
Yeah, to show us that like
because
Eric's in danger now.
Eric's in the underworld. Yeah. Eric is the one in the underworld. Exactly. And I loved that. I thought that was such a cool shot.
Kit pops out with this Allura blast and poof, her hair is red.
Red hair. Boom.
And it's because the goddess has fully been revealed. She is in connection with her power. The doubt that she was experiencing is gone. Kit has burst forth and they start to run out of the cave.
Yep.
We catch Willow looking back at the troll mountain, the dread mines, and Borman is already starting to experience hesitation in his journey.
No, he's on his way to Queen, but he's not there yet.
He's still experiencing, because Graydon's like, you should try on the cuirass. You've got it on you. Why don't you just go and do it? And Borman's like, no. There has to be a right time.
Yeah. He will become a queen when he hands the cuirass off to someone else, probably Kit, because right now he's still trying to be the hero by himself. And the whole point of a queen is to do things in community. And so it's when he doesn't have to be the hero alone and he's willing to give her the cuirass instead of keeping it for himself that he will, and then he's the protector and he will become a queen at that point. So he's getting there, but he's having a rough time. And I love that he mentions his mother at this moment too. Like this show never forgets mothers. Yes.
Yeah. But
this show never forgets mothers.
Also, it's like tying that parallel that you have to become a queen. You have to become a parent, caring about the community. You should visit your mother. I should visit my mother. It's been 2 years. Yes. Yeah. I love also that he's like, the right time is in a cave of a serpent facing down a horde of death dealers. Everything is symbolic in this freaking show.
Yes. I know. I love it.
We have consumption and mothers.
Yep. It's so great. Love it.
And we see the shattered sea, and they're all standing on the threshold of it. It's where the maps end and the final test begins. Okay, how do we pass the test? We have to walk across it. So we hear those words at the start of the episode. This reminds me very much of the quest Lancelot went on, and he had to walk across the knife's bridge, which is, Campbell talks about this a lot. Lancelot, because it's all metaphorical. He's not actually walking across a bridge made out of knives. It means that he is walking across the edge of a knife, and it is that much space to follow your own journey into yourself, to find out who you truly are between that and oblivion, falling into the water. And so you have to basically thread the knife's edge. And having to walk is the trial because you can only do it one way, which is one step at a time. And they get lost a lot because they're trying to find shortcuts to dealing with this. Kit looks at Allura as a newborn baby hero and is like, oh my God, Allura is the goddess.
Yep.
And Graydon's like, we need to rest, resupply, we need food, we need to dry out somewhere. They find the fishing inn, which on the roof, shout out to Jesse Garrett on our Discord. He saw that it says bait and tackle on the roof in Arabesh. So, the common language of Star Wars. I feel like this is just an Easter egg because you can barely see it, but wow.
That's so funny. I love it. I mean, I just assume that this takes place in Star Wars, and I don't care if they never confirm it. Works for me anyway.
It's on my Star Wars podcast. Doesn't that count for anything?
It totally does. But no, but it also has the boat, like the skeleton of the boat on top of the shack.
Yes.
Of the inn.
It's actually not a lap of the goddess. It's not a place for rest.
Wreck.
It's
a ruin.
It is a bait and tackle. But
I'm ching.
It's a place that you get waylaid, basically.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
We have super cute and domestic Kit and Jade, as Kit is caring for Jade is caring for broken Kit.
For new baby Kit.
New baby Kit. New baby Kit.
Oh.
You're like, aren't you a new baby hero? Ooh. And she's like shaking. Like she's like, and she needs to be held. Like, oh yeah.
Yeah, she puts like a blanket over her. It's adorable.
And we get introduced to Zeb, who's played by Julian Glover, aka General Veers from Star Wars. And he has the most amazing... He wakes up and he's like, am I dreaming? Are you figments of my imagination? And this ties back to René Descartes and the philosopher, mathematician, and one of the fathers of rationalism. He's famously known for saying, I think, therefore I am. These are his meditations that is being referenced in this. I'm dreaming. Are you all figments of my imagination? And that was really his whole trying to figure out the world only using reason. Eventually, Emile Kant came around. This is too large of a topic to go into, but it's the similar idea of like you're stuck in the matrix and you can't tell whether or not this is a simulation or if you're just programming inside of a computer or you're stuck in the matrix. It's what if the universe is just a marble on a cat's neck on Orion's belt, like the Men in Black plot. Number one, we know we exist because we think. Nothing that exists can come from nothing, and of course, if you're interested in exploring this further, I highly recommend the podcast Philosophize This, a link to a great episode starting the René Descartes series in the liner notes, but absolutely amazing. Stephen West just absolutely destroys the entire history of human thought.
Nice.
But really the important thing is this is about the nature of existing and struggling with what we are from an identity perspective and how we can separate ourselves from the universe, the nature of God existing. He brings up the idea that we could all just be basically bad thoughts or indigestion of a vindictive god. And in so many ways, you are entering your own subconscious. So you can only use the language of dreams to understand what is real. And it's just a really roundabout way to say what you're experiencing is also potentially what is happening on a larger scale to do with the world, Alora, and the worm.
Yeah. Well, his role here is to tell them what they're going to face as they cross the Shadow Sea. And as we said, what are they facing? They're facing themselves. So what he's doing is he's questioning their reality, letting them know that they are in an elsewhere beyond space and time. And so there will be nothing there for them to do other than confront themselves. That is what they can do there because there isn't anything else. And also his comments about the vindictive god, I really love that can be read in a meta way, a couple different ways as well. One is he could be referring to the storyteller who moves these pieces about on the
John
board.
Kasdan, are you the vindictive god?
Exactly.
Well, I mean, in some ways, like, if you love a character, you don't put them through hell. But I know that John Kasdan loves these characters, and they were born. These characters were born of George Lucas's mind, of all of these creators' minds, and to make them grow and become, more whole, he has to put them. They have to put them through hell.
Yep. And here's the other meta one, and this might be really specific to our particular corner of fandom, but I think you're going to know what I'm talking about, which is the concept of a vindictive god. This to me could also be interpreted as the cynical view of the Force, not as a benevolent system of balance, but as a cruel system that brings characters about in order to watch them suffer.
Right. That heroes are chosen by the Force to die.
Exactly. That was also how I read that.
That hits me in places.
Sorry.
It was a little below the belt, I gotta say.
Sorry.
No, I love it. There's the in story and the out of story, and it could be read in a variety of ways, and I'm screaming in my mind because I am now the plaything of a vindictive god's imagination, i.e. you.
But what I like about this show is that it textually flies against that view.
Absolutely.
It does not subscribe to that.
So he even says it's liberating, isn't it? Knowing things don't matter. And it's like nihilism in words. But then to your point, it absolutely flips that by saying, no, we refuse nihilism. Nihilism being that nothing matters.
Yep.
Oh my goodness. And he's like, you've got any coin? And Willow's like, yeah, I'm loaded. I got diamonds, rubies, sapphires. What do you want?
Because where was all that money? But seriously, because why hasn't it come out till now? Because he's the ferryman and they have to pay him in order to cross the River Styx. That's why.
I can't believe I didn't catch that. Oh my God. I must be so tired.
No.
You're so smart, Missy. No, brilliant. Yeah, exactly. They have to pay to get into the underworld.
Yeah. Yep.
And to get a boat. And literally, we get the, how much for the sleigh, basically. How much for it?
They want to
How much for the ride? Yeah, exactly. Graydon meets the Mudmander.
Well, he doesn't meet it yet. He asks.
He sees it.
He realizes it's there. He kind of senses it, which is where you first get this. And obviously, we've seen the preview images, knowing that he was going to discover this creature and everything. And so, one of the things that we had said earlier on is when Willow said, "Hey, can you commune with animals?" And Alora was like, "No, can you?" Well, we knew, but Graydon's going to be able to. And so we finally got to see it in this episode, which was really, really exciting. And that's how, again, that hint that he's going to be magical.
But what we see is that this Mudmander is not free, but chained and unhappy about it. It's okay. Something that lives below that is chained. What do we know that lives below and is chained? You have to say it out loud, Missy.
The shadow.
The shadow. Also, on a metatextual perspective, the worm,
the
shadow of the planet,
Yep.
wherever they are, the shadow of everybody, the Anduin-sized shadow that lives below the surface.
Mm-hmm.
Shall we name him Kenneth too?
Yes. I love
Everyone is obsessed with Kenneth.
Oh my God.
I need a
He's
Kenneth
so cute.
plushie.
Yeah, I need it immediately, right away.
He is adorable. His big eyes, everything.
Oh my gosh. He's got a little mustache. He's so cute. It's like when people look like their pets.
Zeb offers them dinner, and Borman eats the food. All
my
right.
God, Borman. Why? Also, he offers them food when they ask if they can kind of get on their way. So he's, again, waylaying.
He's waylaying
delaying them.
Yeah, he's delaying them. And he offers them food, which is basically worm porridge. Everyone doesn't eat it, but Borman, that's not good. You do not eat the food in the underworld.
Yeah,
this is a big thing. He eats the worms, and he says he needs more salt.
Gross.
I don't know what that means for Borman yet, but you don't eat the food in the underworld. It's like one of the big rules.
Mm-hmm.
Geek. Willow notices that there's a spear on the wall, and he's like, "Are you from Kashmir?" And he's like, "Yes." And he goes into this whole tale about a princess being stolen from Kashmir. And it totally reminds us potentially of Princess Taramis, but maybe there's another princess, that 3 knights were sent to rescue her. She was taken by a servant of a dark power, but I loved her.
But she was betrothed to someone else. And
wait, there was an enchanted pool. Wait, that might have been a different quest. And he sort of gets blended in his trying to remember. I think this man is over 1,000 years old, and he's set to be an immortal that prevents people from getting through the Shattered Sea and gets waylaying people.
And he was potentially the original lover of the Crone before she became the Crone, because she's the princess that was taken from Kashmir. If that story is true. And Lost Bride quests typically end in failure.
Absolutely.
And so I think that the Lost Bride quest for the Princess of Kashmir did not go well. And this poor guy now is stuck there on the edge of the Shattered Sea forever.
And I have a theory on what is being said here. So they were years wandering until we forgot what we were searching for. So this, and then the next scene with Eric, because they're back to back together, are literally the Parsival quest, when Parsival is tempted by an ageless woman who serves as the Grail messenger, Kundry. She reveals memories of Percival's childhood and finally kisses him. And when Percival rejects him, she curses him to wander aimlessly across the world, really struggling to find his way home. And it literally kind of is both Zeb and Eric together in that story. Maybe the Gales used to be knights. Maybe they're just cursed abominations. It's just really interesting how they pair this scene, and then immediately we see the temptation of Eric back to back.
Mm-hmm. I also thought that one of the other things he said could have been another possible meta commentary on Star Wars, where he says, all these quests and battles and aspirants vying for the throne, they sometimes get blended together. And it starts to sound like endless war. It just never ends. It just goes on forever.
I mean, Ursula K. Le Guin said that war is a bad metaphor because it doesn't actually do anything. In war, eventually both sides end up being the wrong side. And that's sort of what we're seeing with recent Star Wars, which is the rebels are gray. Oh, they're willing to do bad things, but so is the Empire. So what really is the point of fighting a war if everybody's bad? And
we never ended the Star Wars with Star Peace, so there's just no reason to believe that wheel just won't keep on turning forever. And, that the war is just always going to continue, and the players are going to be interchangeable. And so when he says he just can't tell the difference anymore between the quests and the battles and, the people who want to rule. Yeah, I mean, it feels a little bit like a commentary on Star Wars. Little bit.
It's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
They ask him, what did you find out there? And he says, well, what's that beyond the shattered sea? Well, the edge of the world, maybe a leviathan that'll swallow you whole. Oh, more consumption.
Yeah,
right?
well, and also very Cthulhu.
Cthulhu also, belly of the whale, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's always a common very end to a quest, right? Something needs to swallow you so you can actually transform. Nothing beyond the sea goes on forever. And Allura, sort of firm in this, just because you didn't find anything doesn't mean that there isn't anything there.
Mm-hmm. And it's another parallel between her and Hot Crone, because Hot Crone said, well, nothing lasts forever. And Allura basically responded different words, but similar concept to, no, it doesn't go on forever because nothing does.
And Kit responds to her to say, I guess we'll find out. And Allura says, we will. And now Kit and Allura are tied this episode from this moment on.
Yep. They're both determined to see this through.
Yeah, exactly. And she mentions that when I was drowning, I saw Eric and the Crone reaching out for him. I think we're running out of time. That's how we know Lily is Hot Crone.
Hot Crone. Mm-hmm.
Hot Crone. All right. So on to the temptation of Eric. He calls her New Girl.
Oh my God.
Like Dove Allura in his mind is absolutely replaceable.
Oh.
The gateway is glowing and she's standing in the doorway, illuminated. And she's like, what's down there? What if it's our only way out? Okay. What if it's the only way out for a certain party member?
Oh no, stop. It's somebody's only way out, unfortunately.
It's somebody's, why? This is a Chekhov's gun if nobody uses that doorway now.
Mm-hmm.
And we've already known they seem to understand Chekhov's gun, which is, oh, hey, there's a gun hanging on the wall. Instead, we have Chekhov's flute in this episode. So, right?
Stop.
So they understand the groundwork that they lay, and then they pick up those pieces. So they're very good storytellers, and they don't leave stuff symbolically on the floor. Why ask?
Down the stairs, apparently.
Why ask? Why have a doorway? Why ask if you're not meant to use it? Who's going to use it? I don't know. Oh, I do know.
We know. Say it. I know. Season 2, renew Willow.
And she reveals, in an effort to do exactly what she said he would do, her innermost secrets, and says, I'm from Kashmir. What do you know about Kashmir? Oh, the Paladin Circle, the Ivory Tower, the streets lined with moonstones, high walls that keep us safe and isolated. There was a secret sect of blood magic, the Order of the Worm. They always leave their mark. She looks at the door. They fought their way there to steal a princess. And that's how I showed up here. And it's like saying, see, I'm like you, Eric. I'm also stolen royalty. And it's a false pride scenario because it's like,
yeah.
And now she's like, and he's like, you're so snotty about it.
But he's into it immediately. The minute he finds out she's a princess, he's way more attracted to her. He likes power and dominance. Frankly, it's the same things he liked about Allura.
Yeah.
Except that now he has it right in front of him.
He wants to be topped.
Yeah, he absolutely does.
And she's like, you're less obnoxious than I expected. Still not going to make out with you or whatever. So she's putting that out in the universe, right? She's saying, now you're going to be thinking about making out with me. This is literally...
she's reeling him in.
It's sexpionage.
Absolutely is. She's one of
the oldest tricks in the book. We have our temptress, and she's so good at it.
She knows what she's doing.
She knows what she's doing, and he is falling for it. She puts out these ideas, and then being a dude the way he is, the way Eric is, not all dudes are like this, but the way Eric is, he cannot but pick those things up and imagine them.
Oh, yeah. Well, I just love that the minute she says it, he can't stop staring at her lips. It's just like, and he's like, no, I'm not. She's like, yes, you are.
And yep. He got caught looking.
Yeah, he absolutely did.
They're back at the sea inn and they're having breakfast and
but hints in this scene.
Oh, yeah.
Prior to the reveal. You catch all the hints?
I caught a lot of them.
Yeah. Let's hear them. I love them.
Okay, well.
There's so many.
I mean, he calls him Peck.
That was a big one. He's calling Willow Peck. Like, that's a sign something's not right because only evil creatures call him Peck.
Yeah, that's always the sign.
There's also Zeb saying, "Oh, I can make you some eggs." Why? Because she's a bird. And they lay eggs.
Right. Yeah.
And so, like, there's definitely several hints prior to.
Okay, I gotta ask you.
Yeah.
So, is the reason we see two of them because both the Dag and the Doom were in the inn? Because they both leave the inn. We see him twice. That's...
No, because one of them is the real Zeb and the other one is... So the first one, the one that comes in and says, "I'll make you some eggs," that's the Dag. And then what happens is Graydon sees the real Zeb walks in and realizes what's up. And so he grabs the frying pan, which I love because it's Alora's power. Yeah. You know, so he basically grabs Alora's power, the frying pan, and knocks the Dag over the head.
With the pan. And I love Willow's line. It's like, you could have just asked for scrambled.
Yeah.
Like,
I loved it.
Jeez.
Yeah.
And Graydon immediately jumps on the silt sleigh and takes charge, and everybody jumps aboard and they take off. Yep. And we have this great chase scene with Borman, Jade, Kit, Willow, and Alora all ending up being actually kind of incompetent. Borman is like, you know, or Jade's like, "Hey, use the Lex," and he's like basically like, "Be a leader, take charge," and he's like, "No, there's a perfect moment for this, and this isn't it." Solidly,
Papa's got a harpoon,
and so he uses that instead, but fails, right?
Yep.
And he's totally in denial of the call still. Like, just...
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Kit gets hit by the throwing star, which is such slapstick comedy. I loved it. I thought it was hilarious. Like,
And Willow yells at Alora to get the wand and use it and take all the love, dedication, and devotion and gather it all up and what?
Yeah.
So she just yells later.
A spell. Yeah, she just yells a spell because she just doesn't have time to wait for him.
And, you know, why it's not working is because she's still in denial of all of the things that are going on emotionally inside.
Yeah.
And Graydon just pulls out his flute and fires off, like, basically magic missile because it doesn't miss.
Yeah.
And it totally poofs the deck. Yep. And then the Doom jumps aboard, fights with Alora, grabs her arm, and we see the withered crone grab her, and something happens, right? To her. She's like, "Oh no." And Graydon stabs the Doom, and they get away. Graydon took care of both of them.
He did! Look at him go. Good job. He's doing so well.
And Alora just says, "She's coming for me." Because the fear of death is now there.
I want to say that this whole episode... I don't know about more than the other episodes, but definitely to an extreme degree, really felt like the 1988 film. And this scene made me think of the cart escape with Mad Mardigan and Willow and the brownies.
And just how much stuff goes like wrong and yet right? Yeah.
Yep. Remember how like the wheels get torn off and everything, and then they're just like dragging it.
He's like he's like Mad Mardigan's like dragged, and then like the brownies like stab the guy, and like
everything.
It felt chaotic, but also like super satisfying. But like Graydon did everything.
He did,
and he drove the cart at the same time.
Yeah, and that was in the movie. That was the moment where Willow first has to do something heroic. He can't just rely on other people. He personally has to behave in a heroic manner in order to save Alora. And he's specifically, of course, protecting Alora in that scene. And so what's cool about this is that this is Graydon having his heroic moments.
Protecting Alora.
For the first time to protect Alora. So I really like that parallel.
Jade and Kit do their star removal.
Oh, so funny.
I love this line. I thought I caught a possum. It turned out to be a porcupine. So good. Had to have 30 quills removed from my foot. She had lied to Kit previously and said it was only 3. And she slaps Kit and pulls out the star and then screaming.
But she made her think she was going to kiss her. And so it was just like, it's hilarious on multiple levels. I also love it because this was always the story that my parents told me growing up about, like, well, when we used to have to get vaccinations at school, they would just hit us first. And then we'd be so upset about getting slapped, we wouldn't even notice when they gave us the shot. Which, like, I don't know if that kind of abuse actually happened, but it was definitely the story everybody told.
Well, I feel like this was like an older generation thing. Because like, also like, oh, my toe hurts. I stubbed my toe. And then like they punch you in the arm. Yeah. And it's like, now you don't care about your toe.
Because your arm hurts too much. Exactly. And that's what it felt like. It felt like a dad joke. And so I just thought it was hysterical. It was a funny moment for the two of them.
It was amazing. Cut to, there's a lot of like, how much time has passed? Who knows? Why do we care? Borman is sitting up there with Graydon. They've been running away from the Dag and the Doom, the two Gales. And Graydon says, this Mudmander is listless. We got to rest or do whatever it takes to get, Mudmanders do to get their oomph back. Okay. Borman's like, same as us, pal. They mate.
Borman, ultimate wingman. So
okay. I was planning on being good, and then the show just drops this right into our laps and says, "Oh, this is actually also going to be about romance, exploration of feelings, and sex." Setting our expectations.
Absolutely.
I love you, Thraxis Borman.
He ships everything, by the way. Speaking of, like, somebody posted a Tanthamore art, and it had Borman in the background holding a sign that said, I ship it. And Amar retweeted it, and he was like, I do. I was like, this is my favorite thing.
I love him so much. He's great.
He's great.
Amar. All right, so enter the most romantic setting for Kit and Jade. It's like a little mini lap of the goddess. So go back to our Wildwood episode if you don't know what that is. I'm not going to go into it, but basically it's like, it's the perfect place to rest and also to explore feelings, aka mating. We have pinks and sunset and oasis, right? This is a place where you can figure out things and rest your mentality for a bit. Graydon calls the Mudmander to him to eat. He takes his dagger and scratches at his scars. It's brief and quick, and he does it.
I didn't catch that.
He scratches his scars 3 times, including the one that's called out by Allura. 3 times makes a theme.
Oh no.
We'll get to what it means later. I shall name you Kenneth, the protagonist of my romantic farce I'm writing. Oh my goodness. He named the Mudmander the romantic lead of a romantic comedy.
Also, Kenneth means handsome.
He is handsome. He's the handsomest little Mudmander.
He's so handsome. Handsome little guy.
Okay, so is Kenneth a metaphor for Graydon?
Absolutely. Can I talk about amphibians?
Please do.
All right. So, amphibians, and specifically salamanders.
They're psychopomps.
They are psychopomps.
Oh,
absolutely.
Goodness.
I know. Oh,
there's just too much. There's too much. There's too much, Missy. I'm so happy I'm doing this with you because, like, there's too much. I literally am forgetting stuff to talk about now.
There's so much. It's a lot, but it's exciting and I love it. So amphibians, and specifically salamanders, represent immortality, rebirth, passion, and the ability to withstand fire. They regrow their limbs, which is why you get regeneration, transformation. Because of that, they are associated with being able to survive fire. They can be in a fire and still live.
Consumption.
I know! They can survive being consumed. And also, to your point, they're psychopomps, which emphasizes the earth-sky connection. Also, some amphibians, especially frogs, they live in the mud, and during the winter, they will completely shut down their heart and breathing functions in order to survive. Their heart will stop, their breath will stop. They will basically be dead.
Mm-hmm. And then reactivate. Yeah.
Yes, later.
Okay. So briefly, psychopomps are animals or things that have an inter-netherworld connection. They can go between this world and the next. And we've already seen Allura associated with the psychopomp butterflies.
Mhm.
And so we now have butterflies and we have salamander, mudmander. Oh my God.
Yep.
I'm
because
losing
she's
my...
associated with sky and he's
Sky.
associated with Earth. Sky and Earth. I'm telling you, it's there.
What is going on with... What is this show?
What is this show?
I'm going to make a what is this show meme and all the F4
Do it.
people are going to be like, what are you doing, Marie Claire? I'm like, no, what is this show?
What is this show? It makes me so happy.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah. So Kenneth, he's Graydon, but specifically, and we see him age and look like he's going to die and then be released. So yes, it is foreshadowing. Absolutely. 100%. But it's a good foreshadowing.
I know,
because it means he will come back.
Because he can be reborn, he could die and he won't die. All of that. Yeah. And he's a goodest boy.
He is the goodest boy. We love you, Kenneth.
We love you, Kenneth. And Willow approaches and says, that was impressive what you did there. What was that you were using? And Graydon's like, just my flute. Which, by the way, I want to say we called out back in episode 1. So it's super exciting to high five,
validated. Yes, high five.
We're nowhere near each other, but I just made a clappy noise. The flute, but the flute represents the love of his gran, dedication, devotion. It represents all of those things to him. And so he was able to use it with his instincts.
They are both gifts from their mother figures. The wand is Sherlindria's wand. The flute is his nan's gift of music.
Oh, the power of the femme and the mother line.
Yep.
Oh my goodness. And yeah, instincts are incredibly important, right? Listening to your internal is really, really important. And he says, it must have been just from listening to you and Allura. Okay. I mean, maybe that's what is coming to the surface of his consciousness. But I think he's always known Nakotic. I think he was born as the embodiment of the darkness.
Yeah, he was born on the dark side.
And he was born first. I think he's older than Allura.
Mm-hmm.
And she was born because he was born.
So you're saying they're a dyad?
I don't know if I'm strong enough to go down this path again.
I don't know. Forget we said that. Cut that out, okay? Never mind.
Okay. But Willow says, the magic's in you, which means the magic's always been in him, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's already a great sorcerer. He can commune with animals. He can cast spells. He has a full understanding of himself. Okay. Allura, seeing that Graydon has his poop in a group, is like, it's time to train. What? So it's really subtle, but throughout this entire show, they affect each other. And we've talked about it before, like how they're kind of in orbit of each other. Like when Graydon uses the spell that causes the earthquake that shakes Allura kind of in her first trial to escape out of the barrier. Graydon being the thing that gets Allura to show up at the magical table is entirely on brand for the two of them. They circle each other like this. He is inspired to become a better person and become who he truly is meant to be because of her. By her light shining down, he's like, I want to rise to that. And she's like, I want to be as good as Graydon is because Graydon is awesome.
She respects him and she respects his intelligence. Like when he reveals himself to her as this scholar of magic, she is very impressed. And one of the ways you can see that is the way that she ends up behaving more like him in this episode, because you see her looking at the book. She's never bothered with the books before, but all of a sudden she's got her nose in a book. Although I will note that they did not make sure that she actually made her way through the book. She's always on the same first or second page when they show.
The question is, can she read?
Can she read? I don't know.
We've always asked this question about Luke Skywalker. We don't know. I'm kidding. Sort of. Okay. I have this comment because I thought about it actually when I was recording Bad Batch, that fighting and action sequences in action adventures are social lubricant for feelings. And it's the only way that you can actually get things out of you is like through adrenaline. And so we get that in both what's happening with Allura and the conversations with Willow and Graydon later on, but also Jade and Kit.
Yes.
I love how Allura misunderstands the directions, like, take all the love and crap in the center of my chest, let it build up and shoot it out of my wand. Okay, so I talked about last episode how Allura had so much built up stuff that she needed to experience a magical orgasm. And that's kind of what happened with releasing Kit, right? All of this pent up stuff was built up and she eventually was able to actually have it burst forth. But that's not what Willow's trying to teach her.
Yeah.
But she equates that to what she experienced before, which is really funny.
Well, I think there's also a parallel with the thirst that we talked about earlier, which is denial will cause you to grow. No, not this type of denial. Like denying the truth will cause you to make poor choices. So the point is that, like, by denying her feelings, her true feelings, that's why she ultimately ends up using a narcotic spell. It's like her form of choosing a false bride, basically, is she just basically chose the wrong type of magic and the wrong spell because she's denying her true feelings. She refuses to acknowledge them. So it's denial. It's denying her hunger and her thirst, which Willow tells her specifically not to do, but she just hasn't learned it yet.
And she's getting angry. And she even yells at herself to get up. Oh, so good. I kind of want to talk about Jade and Kit's fight scene as one unit, because although it happens over the course of like a bunch of scenes, I think it's really important for us to talk through it together, because it also helps to set up like where Kit ends up at the end. And it also is mirrored for what Allura is going through. Like, again, like Kit and Allura are almost mirrors as well. Cause like as much as Allura, a funhouse mirror, Allura is denying all these feelings. Kit is embracing all of them and kind of like going with the flow.
She's finally confronting all the things that Allura refuses to. And because she has, by the end of the episode, eaten her own shadows, that's why she's able then to approach Allura and give her what she needs in order to eat her own.
And for Jade and Kit, they experience alchemical union. And I'm going to talk about how it presents. So, at the start of the fight, in the first few scenes, we actually see the colors of red, orange, and yellow. And then yellow and green are presented, and then blue, indigo, violet. And those are not just the colors of the rainbow, I know, but it actually is the different phases of alchemical union as you are broken down and reformed into a single new formed thing. And this is how relationships happen. You two people, two halves, which were separate, are broken down through the course of this sparring. And sparring is like dancing.
The dance of body and soul, which we said was the last step of their lover's journey, which was interrupted back at the end of episode 5.
Exactly. They're experiencing this dance. And from a mythological perspective, there are many deities that dance, and their dance is basically the churning of the universe and creation and destruction all in one. And essentially what it means is that they sacrifice their former selves to the relationship and thus become more balanced individuals as they see themselves in the other person. When they kiss, essentially everything that was missing about you has clicked into place and you become one. And it's so well done in this episode that I have to call it out in this huge way, that Kit and Jade are more whole people after they have intertwined than they were before.
Yes. And it is so beautifully done, and it's the way it's built too is so careful. So to your point, it starts with Kit seeing Allura kind of basically taking hits and getting up, and that's when she decides, well, I'm not going to sit here and do nothing. Time to spar. So she gets up and brings Jade with her and tells her, don't you dare hold back. Now, yes, on the surface, she's talking about fighting, but what she means is emotionally, hold nothing back from me. I want it all. I want all of you now. And so then they spar. We see them, to your point, orbiting around one another, rotating around one another, getting closer, getting closer.
Mm-hmm.
Jade says she's been aching to fight Kit for a while now, but circumstances kept frustrating her.
Sex!
She means sex.
Okay, so like literally it's all just metaphor for foreplay.
But it's perfect.
It's
perfect.
so
perfect. It's not like clumsy. It's just well done.
Beautiful and like erotic and
yes. And they lead into that to the actual kiss itself with, I know what you're doing. You're using, and I forget the name of the Minette's ploy.
Minetta ploy, I think.
Yeah, Minetta ploy. And it's the unexpected ploy. Basically, it's saying you are doing something that your opponent does not expect.
Mm-hmm.
And Kit catches Jade off guard by confessing her love. Yep. And Jade is so startled that she's able to knock her down. And then here's the thing about the kiss is we talked about they had a kiss back in episode 1.
Yeah.
But that was when Kit was extremely selfish and Kit just takes whatever she wants. She kissed her and Jade was startled by it. And there was no love confession associated with it. So Jade did not know what it meant. And then Kit's just bailing like immediately after she's leaving. So this was very different. And in this instance, she waits for Jade to give her the invitation to say, well, are you going to do something about it?
Consent is sexy.
Yes, consent is sexy. So now Kit is learning to give love instead of taking love.
And it was a backlit kiss, which is classic beautiful chef's kiss. Mwah. And okay, so do you want some Campbell? You
I'm always
Campbell?
down for some Campbell. Let's hear it.
They stare into each other's eyes during this dance, and Campbell says, "Love is in the eyes," right? And it's about learning to love each other, and what you see is most important. And this goes back to Tristan and Isolde, which I briefly talked about last episode. But the idea is that by choosing Jade and Jade choosing Kit, this is duty. It doesn't matter anymore. Choice, love, joy, personal choice is more important than whatever duty, whatever the world demands of them. Tristan and Isolde is the story of a princess and a knight, that the knight comes in between the princess marrying another person, a prince king from another kingdom, King Mark. And that's exactly what's happening. Jade has come, the knight has come in between the princess from marrying another person, and they're both choosing to be in hell together rather than not have each other. It's so romantic. This show is so romantic, and it loves romance.
It really does. And we love it for that.
We love it so much. Okay. Alora is reading, like we already called out. And sparring with Graydon. Oh my god.
Magical sparring.
Magical sparring. How long have we waited for like very cute magical sparring?
We've wanted it for a long time.
Dancing is a mating ritual. We've already talked about this with Kit and Jade, but it's worth repeating. They are experiencing a mating ritual, the two of them. I wouldn't say that what we see with Willow and Alora is anything close to a mating ritual. It's just not presented in the same way. It's more like just battering on each other, but they're having fun. They exchange wands at one point. It's practice.
She knocks him on his back and he's loving it.
Loving it. Looks up at her like she is the light of his life. And it's practice. It's partnership, and it's just joy. I think like Alora doesn't smile a lot anymore, and this is one of the only times that we see her smile in this episode is when she's with Graydon.
Absolutely. They both smile during this whole sequence, and it's really fun. I like the cute little glance at each other when they're supposed to be meditating. That was great.
Oh my god, his smile.
Oh my god, so cute.
She was caught looking first.
Yep. I'm so excited.
Graydon has a cute little moment with Kenneth, which was, of course, in the trailers, and we've been obsessed with since forever. But Graydon shows that he can care for himself and others. What a good partner he make.
I know.
Okay. And then we have the most important scene. So we have this scene with Willow training with Allura, and he's like poking at her. And then we have this moment.
You are still holding back. You've got to dig deeper. Use your emotions, your imagination. You want to defeat the Crone? Well, go on, show me. What are you waiting for?
Stop it.
What?
Baiting me. It won't work.
What, denying your feelings will?
I don't want to hurt you.
Well, what do you want?
To save Eric.
Why?
Because I love him.
What do you love about him? His cute smile? That he's a prince? Or maybe because all the other girls wanted him and he picked you?
He was kind to me.
What, no one else has ever been kind to you before? No stable boy has ever smiled back?
What do you want me to say?
Your doubt, jealousy, pride, hunger. Accept those parts of yourself, because it's the only way you'll ever master them. I want you to be honest.
Willow!
And he's absolutely calling out that she hasn't been able to accept these disparate parts of herself and the things that she's been denying herself. And I keep on yelling at the screen at this moment, Allura, eat your shadow. Eat that shadow. It's the only way. I have never seen any story in Western media handle this sort of conversation as well as this was handled.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really glorious. Women in Western media are often told just to be the good girl and deny their emotions, to not feel doubt, jealousy, pride, hunger, lust. Like,
yes. Yeah.
Not feel these things. You have to be a good girl. You have to be pure,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're not allowed to accept that these things are part of you. This show is everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And I find myself consistently appreciating that these things are not subtext. They are in the script. And that means so much to me because they're honest about what they're trying to say. They want to make sure that the audience understands it because they believe that it's important. It's important for the audience to understand this. And so they're willing to say it.
Feelings are expressed out loud. Emotions
Yes.
are expressed out loud. What people are hiding is expressed out loud. And it's because as a culture, we have gotten so used to the subtext that people just start ignoring the subtext. It has to be textual. It has to be. And
well, we used to say I love you in movies all the time. The love confession was a huge part of film for a very long time. And at some point, I don't know exactly when, that kind of dropped out of scripts, even explicitly romantic scripts. You didn't get love confessions as often, which is so strange. And so it's very rare. And
it was almost shameful.
The sequel trilogy, no one ever said I love you.
No one, yeah.
Which is so weird for Star Wars.
We as a culture need to eat this shadow.
Absolutely.
And so this pushes Allura to the extreme. She is angry and so grasps for that darkness, the darkness that the Crone has been offering her, and uses the words of the Crone. Fungi Ygoth. She touched the darkness. She has met the goddess and descended directly to the dark. Yes.
Went straight to the dark.
He went straight to the dark. You didn't even hesitate. All right, Get out of this show, Luke.
You got plenty of shows of your own. You don't need another one.
You got comics.
We won't go into that. But no, like it's amazing. I also want to note, because you've called this out a few times before, the way that evil magic is or dark magic is frequently acid green in color. Most of her magic has been blue-green. Her and Willow have blue-green magic. Graydon has purple magic. But when she uses the narcotic spell, it's an acid green color, the magic that shoots at Willow. So part of the way that we know that this is bad magic, evil magic.
Yep. And I also think like red is often associated with bad magic just because of blood and things like that. Yep. So it's interesting. It's interesting what they're doing here. We get a little shot of Tanthamore post-coital cuddles. It's good.
It's cute.
Yeah. Allura instantly feels regret, like obviously of hurting Willow. Oh my goodness. It's just, thank you, creators of Willow.
So good. So good. And it is also really important that she did finally have to confront, even if she won't admit it still, she did finally have to confront, whether her love for Eric is real.
Yeah. She doesn't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because hasn't anyone ever been nice to you? I did want to point out, like, you know, Willow calls out he is a prince, and maybe that's part of it, because we learn later she always wanted to be a princess.
Yeah, I think definitely. I think it's very obvious that was part of it, and that's okay. Is the point.
Mm-hmm.
And as we've mentioned multiple times, she is destined to be royalty in more ways than one.
Yeah, exactly. They're going along their way, and Borman, we cut to the scene and it's flipped, which is amazing.
Yes, because the sea is also a sky.
The sea is also a sky, but Borman
and once
is
again
turned upside down.
He is.
Because he also is symbolically, metaphorically turned upside down. And he asks, dare I ask, how do we even know if we're going in the right direction? Again, that maze, being lost, all of that symbolism. And wow, is Amar hot.
I know. It's just very easy on the eyes. Mm-hmm.
It's very attractive this episode with his shirt off and all of his tattoos out.
Yes. Later when he says, he's like, I look really good when I'm naked. I'm like, dude, don't put that image in my head. No.
It's like the hot crone, like just putting the images in our heads. Right?
Stop it.
Jade calls out that the days are getting longer and the nights are getting shorter. Food is running out. Okay, this is really important because this is calling out that they are all experiencing ego death.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They are being stripped away of everything. They're going to come down to basically being skeletons. And we get that. This is, they repeat it like too many times to count how many times they're dying.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and to your point about like eventually they get stripped down to the bones. What do they come across toward the end of their journey?
Leviathan.
A giant skeleton.
The Leviathan in a giant skeletal form.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's just like, oh my gosh, they're just beating you over the head with it, but it's a good thing. I also really love Alora when they ask her, you know, what she's going to do when they get there. And she says, I'll kill the witch. All right. There's a few different things going on there.
Okay.
One, of course, is what witch is she talking about? As we've mentioned a couple times, Alora herself can be considered a witch in certain scenes. Like she is also a witch. So when she says, I'll kill the witch, again, and especially given the
internal witch. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And especially given that the Crone is specifically set up as the Dark Alora, as we've mentioned, it's killing the witch would be killing herself.
Yeah.
That's not what you're supposed to do. So the other aspect of this is killing is not the answer. Right? Eat the witch, maybe, but don't kill her. Killing is not the answer. And so her saying that, I'm going to kill the witch, is not what she should do to defeat the Crone.
Probably won't happen. I'm wondering if we're going to actually get some sort of healing of the Crone.
Well, it'll be either healing or it'll be a parallel with Bavmorda where she does it to herself.
Right, yeah. Or there's something to do with consuming her like we had with Graydon.
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility. Or even maybe Graydon is the one that consumes her in order to save the rest of them.
Oh, interesting. He eats Dark Alora.
Yep.
Oh, I kind of like that.
It's Dark Union, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, but it's good because, yeah, interesting. I don't know. There's lots of cool things. It could go in a multitude of ways, and I would be very happy. What's been really cool about this show is that it does things I expect, but in ways I couldn't possibly imagine and love more. And I will be forever grateful for that. It teaches me something. All right. Lily and Eric, we're back to hot crone action. We have this moment with Lily talking about how, you know, something was wrong with the world. And this feels like you've heard heroes say this. Like, I hate to keep on bringing up the Matrix in this episode, but I'm going to, it's described like an itch in your brain that you knew that something was wrong with the world, right? The rules must be obeyed. But what if there's something else?
Yeah. In my notes, I wrote that she wanted more. Sounds like a heroine's journey gone awry.
Yeah. I have this theory.
That's how it feels. Yeah, what's your theory?
This is just like me musing on Campbell, and I've actually talked with Ty Black from Wit and Folly about this a fair amount. I actually think that villains are just forever lost in the underworld.
They just didn't find their way out. Yep.
They just never found their way out. And so they're stuck there and they're still craving rebirth, but they get lost and they cannot find their way out of the darkness.
Yeah.
It's just a really cool way to say no one is beyond finding their way back home. I also want to call out there's a Campbellian concept that he talks about the right-handed path and the left-handed path. And if you ever see the hero's journey or the adventurer's journey sketched out where the hero goes the right-handed way or clockwise, it's actually not Campbell. It's somebody who is interpreting Campbell and misunderstanding one of the fundamental elements of Campbell. Because Campbell considered the right-handed way to be the way society wants us to behave. So getting married, having kids, doing our duty. And the left-handed way was going away from society's expectations and following our instincts and our heart. Clarissa Piccola Estes talks about this as the wild woman archetype, and it's absolutely the way that Lily is talking about it. She went on an adventurer's journey, on a heroine's journey, and got lost in the darkness. And it's absolutely saying she's still a hero. Like, she's still on a heroic journey.
Yeah. Yes. She can still be redeemed. So, Crone-demption.
Crone-demption. All right. All right. So she follows up and says, like, well, what do you want? What do you want? Throws it back at his court. And Eric's like, I guess I'll marry Dove, start a family. Her real name is Brunhild. I call her Dove. Thank God Eric knows her name.
Yeah. Yeah. Seriously. Although it does also still make me go, but why though? Why call her this other name? But oh well.
He doesn't like her name. I don't know.
Well, and because she's the tri-goddess, so that's why.
Tri-headed goddess, it's a big thing. Defend the realm, just be the best husband, father, son I can possibly be. That's what you do when you have honor. Okay, right-handed path, left-handed path. Okay, and he's totes primed for hot crone action. I want to be free to follow my impulses and to say what I really think.
But also, she does, but she also asks him, well, like people don't have expectation or something about like, oh, you don't follow people's expectations or something.
You don't follow.
And he says, nothing's expected of me. And this is so interesting to me because this goes back to all the way back to episode 1, where you could see how hurtful it was to him that no one did have any expectations of him. And I still believe that part of the reason why he rushed to propose to Allura is because he wanted someone to expect something of him. He wanted those expectations to live up to because no one had ever expected anything of him. His mother certainly didn't. Kit only expected him to leave like Mad Mardigan did. And so he wanted someone who expected him to be good and to be dedicated. And that was part of Allura's appeal. And so now he's separated from her. He doesn't have that. And she asks him, oh, don't you follow people's expectation? And he goes, no one expects anything of me.
And so this ties into needing purpose, the thirst, right? The thirst both, physically and also emotionally and also sexually. He has desire to be wanted. And so what does Lily do?
She smudges him.
And we have this crazy romantic music. Like, this is like classic Hollywood romantic music swell.
Yeah.
Wow.
They really strung up all the violins just for this one part.
They used all the orchestra.
They were like, let's go.
Let's go. It was like hunger didn't work for Lily to tempt him, and so thirst will. All right. Do we want to talk about Dark Union here or later?
I want to wait till later because I think there's a moment for it that's ideal.
Okay, awesome. I think maybe I know a way you can go home.
And he starts to figure it out.
Oh my goodness, it's so good. And people that are confused about her being the crone at this point, like, she crone.
Yeah.
I was here before you got here. I was here for a long time, maybe 1,000 years. Princess maybe.
Yep.
I hid from you because I've made mistakes, trapped by fears. You're the one who brought me here. Yeah, hot crone.
Yeah.
And then we get the line from the trailers, which I thought was Allura this whole
Me too.
time.
But again, I think that's deliberate because she's Dark Allura, so that's okay.
Yes, you think you know what is real and what isn't, what is light and dark, what is good and what is evil. Forget all you know or what you think you know and come with me. Ooh.
Such a good line. I'm kind of obsessed with it.
Okay, do you want to talk about it?
Sure.
Oh my goodness. So this is the same effect as what we're having in the Night Sea Journey, where everything is getting turned around. And up is down is up, left is right. And is purposely telling him that she has the answers to his problems and that he shouldn't trust himself. This is the antithesis of what we have been saying this whole Willow series, which is trust yourself, listen to yourself, find your own joy, listen to yourself. And she's like, you know nothing, dummy. Follow me.
You know nothing, Jon Snow.
Exactly. And he's like, he does the right thing, which is he tries to run. But unfortunately, he has no choice.
Because he's just too thirsty.
He's just too thirsty because he has no other purposeful options. He has nothing that he can see in this desert to quench his thirst. Back to my American president quote, people crawl through the desert looking for genuine leadership, but when it's not there, they will drink the sand. Okay, we have a ship name for our Crone Prince. It's Crone Prince.
It's Crone Prince.
If there's a better name that develops, I love it. It's great.
I kind of love everything. I mean, so far we have Tanthamor, Grey Allura, Rogue Griever, which I love, and now Crone Prince. I love it.
It's kind of like Crown Prince, but Crone Prince. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's great. It's great. I love it.
It works.
It works on a variety of levels. Do you ship them?
Of course. Absolutely. I don't know how to explain how very here I am for Hot Crone and Evil Eric. That's like an awesome match. And they both just, I'm all about it.
I hope he's flirty with her when she's gross.
That would be so fun. We need it. We'll see.
This is revealing parts of my psychology I never thought I would. There we go.
You're welcome, everyone.
Kit and Willow inside of the sleigh. I heard my father's voice beyond the seal in the light. Willow doesn't answer. And so Kit asks, what is the worm? What is the worm, Missy? If magic is the bloodstream of the universe, the worm feeds on it. Imprisoned a long time ago. Because consumption. Imprisoned a long time ago beneath the surface of the world, it is waiting and sleeping. Okay. Theory time. Speculation. What is beneath the surface of Graydon? We don't know. Surface. I don't know. There's stuff going on with that. And almost immediately after this scene, we get Willow having a dream and Borman trying to wake him up, but it's Mims, right? He's having the dream of Mims and she's like in trouble in the caves. And he wakes up because he hears Borman and he's like, that wasn't a dream. And Borman's like, I had a dream. I was at a wedding and I was naked and everyone was laughing at me. But that's like, that doesn't make sense. I look phenomenal naked. Borman's all about relationships, marriages, mating, reminding everybody he's like the relationship fairy.
He is. He really is.
And now we have the scene with Graydon and Kenneth. Kenneth being sick. He says, the further we go, the more depressed he seems. He's been sick and dying. And Allura says, he can sense it. We're getting close to the immemorial city. Graydon is scratching at his shoulder. It's kind of like the same vibes as picking at a scab and like letting the ooze come out, right?
Ew.
Okay, so an itch on your shoulder, on your right shoulder, this is the clearest one we can see. He's itching his right shoulder, means that you have an undiscovered legacy.
Ah, shoot.
He has itched the other shoulder, but very specifically when you itch your right shoulder, you have an undiscovered legacy. And when you itch in general, it means that something is irritating you under your skin or on your skin. Something is. The more he connects with Kenneth, the more magic he uses, the more he is feeling that magic underneath his skin, underneath the seal on his chest, which we have guessed that it might be holding something in rather than holding something out. Elora just leaves him alone because he's like, I would like to be alone because he is metaphorically depressed, and you cut ties with the things you love because they're all feeling like they're spiritually dying.
Is he the harbinger of the worm?
I don't know if he's the harbinger or if he is the worm. He's one of the two.
Yeah, dang it.
I don't know, because currently we don't know who the harbinger is, right?
Mm-hmm.
The harbinger was supposed to be Bab Morda.
Yes.
And we assume that's why they took Eric.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know enough yet.
All right, that's okay. I enjoy going on this journey. It's good. It's fine. But yeah, it's sad, and seeing the connection between him and Kenneth, and then seeing what happens to Kenneth, and you kind of realize that this is where Graydon is going.
Sigh.
And sad. I know. But then we move on to, I think, what is it? Willow is he talking to Kit again? Or is he talking to Elora?
Yeah.
He's talking to Kit. That's right. And she says, what would you say to Mims if you could talk to her now? And he says, hang on, Bobbin. I'll be home soon. Aww. And I was like, oh, Bobbin.
The Bobbins. Our Bobbins. The Bobbins.
So but Kit sees him, and you see that she's really impacted by the way that, he reacts to this and how he wants to be able to speak to his daughter and reassure her. And I feel like she sees how Mad Mardigan must have felt about leaving her and wanting to get back to her, which is why in the very next scene
we get our galaxy world between worlds. Right. Crazy, amazing. This is elsewhere, as I call it, right? So in a lot of fantasy and fiction that plugs into the collective unconscious, you have this concept of the cognitive realm. I think Brandon Sanderson calls it that. In Star Wars, it's the world between worlds. In Narnia, it's the wood between worlds. It is this idea that there is a place that exists out of space and time.
Yep,
and
exactly.
It is gorgeous. It makes you want to cry. It's so beautiful.
It's gorgeous. This scene just was so beautiful. And you can tell how much care they poured into these shots in order to make it as beautiful as it is. And all I could feel watching this, aside from just awe at how beautiful it was, wow, I wish we had this in Star Wars. And I mean it in terms of live action, because yes, I know we have a world between worlds in the animated series, but I want a scene like this in live action because it's possible and it's beautiful and it transports you to another world.
And it makes you feel like magic is real.
Yes, exactly. I just thought it was so stunning. And it showed how much variety they could get of moods with this one single environment. Mm-hmm. They're on just this open, flat marsh almost.
What can you do with a flat line?
With nothing. Challenge
accepted.
Yeah. And they just did so many things with it, with the lighting and with the blocking and the shots and everything, sometimes it's misty, sometimes it's bright.
Like, I'm wondering if did they use the volume for this? Like, I'm trying to figure out
know.
Like how they made this happen. Like,
so pretty. It's extremely pretty.
In short, I need behind the scenes, like a documentary, please.
Yes, I believe there is one supposed to be coming on Disney Plus. Somebody teased about it.
I hope so.
Yeah,
Missy,
they're supposed
do you want to talk about it?
Oh my god, when that comes out, we'll totally talk about it. But
we will lose our goddamn minds.
Because what is this show?
What is this show?
I know.
It has reached that level where I have no idea anymore. I have lost words.
Oh,
but this scene is so important. It's so important. You should sleep, Allura, not tired. I stopped you from going to your father, but you saved my life. So this is like a conversation that was well past due about guilt and acceptance and how Kit has absolutely grown and understands and accepted things. And we see that in her, and we see it symbolically in how she accepted her feelings finally for Jade. And I don't know why Mad Mardigan did what he did. I don't even remember him, but I don't believe that he didn't love you. Oh my God.
I know. It was such an important scene, and it's the scene that cements them as sisters, even before, the climactic scene. And I just think it's so amazing that they chose to set such an important conversation between two women in this beautiful scene. And another thing I want to mention is that for swan maidens, which is basically just another way to say the fairy bride or the fairy woman, which is what Allura is as the goddess. For swan maidens, victory for them is typically not taking a mate. They can take a mate, yes, but victory typically for a swan maiden is returning to her true home, which is the other world. And specifically in her true home, there is a sisterhood. And
it's like the Fae of the Grove.
Yes. And so coming home to her sisters, to the feminine fold, is really just a huge part of the journey of the fairy woman. And so seeing her do that, come into sisterhood with Kit, is a really amazing moment. And I still can't believe they gave it to us.
And I also think that because she met the dark goddess in the fight with Willow, this also classifies as the urgent need to reconnect with the feminine, which is the next step in the heroine's journey, where she can't be alone, right? She needs to feel the balm of femininity around her. She has darkness within her, but she's still allowed to be a woman with emotions. And Kit says, I was jealous of you because of the way people are. Nothing has ever come to me naturally. To be brave, to be loved, and not to be a princess is what I always wanted. And Allura responds, I sort of always did want to be a princess. So
yes,
they're like equal opposite twins in this moment. And Kit is the goddess in Allura's moment here, in that she is offering her wisdom and guidance. They have switched since.
They swapped roles. That's right.
Wildwood. All right. Now we reach the catabasis for most of the crew. The lowest point. Borman trying the Lux finally, and during a storm, and it fails. Willow hearing Mims's voice.
But he calls to her specifically.
Oh, yeah. And he's like, hear my voice. And he sees sort of Lich Mim. And she says, Silas came home. And but we weren't prepared. We didn't know. And now there's like all this guilt. And Allura comes up to him. And he admits that Kaya has died, and because he wasn't around, and Rhiannon left but was still alive because he was so mad at Willow. Oh man. So this is important. This is the meat and potatoes of what has been blocking Willow this whole time from getting through his emotional underworld and keeping him as a hermit.
Yep. Yeah. But he's able to express it, which is an important step for him, and part of the reason why he's able to, move back into a healthy archetype of the crone so that he can move toward mage. So it is really, really important that he said this out loud. I also thought it was interesting because Rhiannon, blamed him for this terrible thing that happened and ran away, which again sounds kind of similar to Kylo Ren or Ben Solo. Again, it's the running away because the mentor failed you. And this is sometimes what happens and how characters end up on the dark side or in a metaphorical underworld.
Yep, exactly. I'm obsessed with the fact that after Allura had a conversation, met with the goddess, reconnected with the feminine, is wearing a brand new coat.
Oh, yeah. I didn't realize that's the moment that she gets the coat. You're totally right.
Yep. And, she's trying to reassure Willow, and we hear Borman and Graydon fighting in the background. You've killed us all, i.e., they're all dead at this point because they're stuck in the water, and Graydon let Kenneth go. He was sick and dying. He's holding his ring.
Yes. I noticed that.
It's the guilt of his brother coming to the forefront. He couldn't kill something else that he felt connected to.
But it's also the symbol of his hero's heart.
Yes. Oh my God. Is he going to give Allura the ring?
Please. I want it. Like, I'm not confident that it'll happen, but I would love it if it did.
At some point.
Love it.
Please do that for us. And effectively, this is the point where, again, the lowest point, catabasis, you are at the rock bottom. You don't know which way is which. You're lost in the underworld. And Allura says, we have to walk. Isn't that what you said? We have to walk across the shattered sea because there's no shortcuts to getting yourself up and out of depression. There's no shortcuts to self-improvement. It is one step after one step at a time. Borman's like, till we starve? Again, death.
Yep.
Everybody dying. All right. Cut to Eric crawling across the sand up into the temple, right? Accepting the Crone as his Lord and Savior.
I'll do whatever you want.
Okay. It felt exactly like Vader to me, crawling across.
Oh, heck yeah. Absolutely.
The shores of Mustafar, Lava Lake, but also that moment when he submits to Palpatine in the office.
Yes. And when he first names him Vader. Oh my God, that scene.
Right. So yeah, same stuff. Good stuff. Good.
Yeah, I'll do anything. I can't lose her. Yep, exactly the same. Totally.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally. You will turn to the false creature, the false one, in order to satisfy your deepest desire.
And she presents to him a chalice. Again, tying back to Percival. He was the Grail hunter, and he was always presented with this false Grail by all of these tempters. And okay, let's talk about chalices. They are a symbol of baptism, being reborn in a symbol of creation and femme power. Chalices are femme, being a cup. And it is essentially like a communion with the dark. So a dark union.
Yep. Yes. It's like you were just saying, Da Vinci Code. What are they seeking? They're seeking the Grail. What is the Grail? A woman.
Yeah.
So, so yeah, it's the Crone.
Yes. And so this is an unholy marriage with the Crone via the worm paired with the vermiscus in the hole in the middle, and then we get this amazing shot of him in her lap, in the lap of the dark goddess, being fed the vermiscus via a chalice.
Right. So again, this is a very direct parallel to Allura and Graydon at Nockmaar, where he's got his head in her lap and she's feeding him. This is a direct parallel to that. It's very, very deliberate.
Very deliberate. All right, let's talk about Dark Union. What is Dark Union? Okay. Marie-Louise von Franz, who we mentioned at the top of the show, was a Jungian psychologist and also studied fairy tales for archetypes, talks about how when in alchemical union, when you're trying to transform yourself, sometimes you accidentally marry the wrong person. And this is a scenario by which you had sort of no other options, or the options, you were too thirsty basically for something that your soul lacked, and you ended up drinking from the wrong cup, as it were. And so what this effectively means is that you are now trapped in the underworld with the creature that trapped you.
That's wild.
And you cannot move forward until you throw off the creature. Yeah. And Dark Union also has a lot of implications to do with, we often see it paired with a desire to control the party, control the other person, control the power, subsume the power. It's often in a place of, in our culture, patriarchal masculinity trying to control femme power. And in a way, we sort of have that because Eric's power comes from his mother, which comes from Bavmorda, like the blood of the Six probably comes from that line. So there is a little bit of that in the union with the worm and the crone.
And I wanted to mention also that that's very explicit in the imagery because we have where he is laying, there is what appears to be the painting of the worm going around the sort of circular structure, and it looks like it's eating him.
Yep.
So he is being consumed by the worm. Also, if you look at his position and sort of just the configuration of the goo moat or whatever you want to call it, it looks like a keyhole, and he's the key because he's the blood of the Six, and so he fits into the keyhole. And so that's also very important. Also very, again,
femme.
Key in a hole, very femme.
Yeah.
Yes, but and so it's all very deliberate.
I mean,
just
it's so much.
imagery.
It's the layers and layers and layers of symbolism that are all saying the same thing. It's a lot to untangle, and our brains are very tired. The group is lost in a mist. A mist is a wall-less maze. We're almost there, they say. I didn't know how far we'd have to go, Willow says. Oh, man. This hurts a lot because he feels like so lost and like he's led these kiddos astray.
It's such a Crone moment because for most of the Crone's journey, they're thinking that they can avoid death and that they can somehow, not experience death, but it can't be avoided.
It can't be avoided, yeah. And Jade says, my mother told me before your mother told... Oh, sorry. There's the conversation with Jade and Kit about Sorsha telling Jade that there might be a time where it'd have to bring you home, and that Jade confirms her faith in Kit because they are both more whole people, and she trusts Kit to make her own decisions for herself. That's really important in a partner.
Mm-hmm. And it indicates that Sorsha no longer has the hold over her that she used to have.
And thus Kit is a full hero.
Mm-hmm.
Borman points out the skull.
Yep.
The giant Leviathan skull. This is about collecting the bones. They're now just down to bones and they're ready to be reborn. Mm-hmm. And upon seeing the skull, as expected, we've already talked about bones in the Wildwood a lot, so I'm not going to repeat it all, but Borman is completely ego destroyed, and he says, I thought I knew who I was, but I don't. And Grade says, well, who are you? He's like, I'm nobody.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
Yep.
This is perfect.
It's so good.
I'm nobody, because his entire world persona and who he thought he was and who he was going to be, he thought he was going to be the hero of this story. And he keeps on trying and running into walls, and it's just not working because, like we've talked at the top of this show, he has to transform into the queen, and he has to understand that the group, the mission is more important than his ego.
Yep. Exactly.
Graydon is drinking water, and then he shares it with Alora.
Which is a kiss!
It's an indirect kiss, and we're calling it. We're claiming this one.
It's a kiss! All right.
By any reasonable standards, it is a kiss.
Mm-hmm.
This is a small detail, but as much as Alora has gotten a new jacket, Graydon is no longer hurt on his left hand. He has removed the bandage. This is the first time. He also is wearing a brand new skin, which looks animal-like. His chest is open and the ring is fully displayed, which is what you said it was. Mm-hmm. His hero's heart on display.
Yep.
Graydon is now able to be truthful. And now it's Miss Alora Dannon asking if Graydon is okay.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes through and says, as a kid, I used to be play as a sorcerer, visiting strange worlds, fighting monsters. Never thought I'd actually do it, let alone with Laura Dannon. Oh, man. When we get to the city, I know you're going to save Eric, and you two will go off together because you love him And while I don't love him, I love you. And the music swells with this love confession.
Yep.
Without you, I would have never become the man I always wanted to be. Oh my God.
I was like, oh, it's like, Alora, what are you doing, babe? Come on.
Love is never something that you can expect in return. It has to be freely given with no possible, like, it cannot, true love like this cannot be conditional. And he is absolutely a whole and integrated person at this point. As they reach the edge of the world. Now is the time for John Kasdan's paraphrase of Tom Robbins' quote. We are our own dragons as well as our own heroes, and we have to rescue ourselves from ourselves. This is from the sci-fi article where John is, it's a great article, so I'm going to link it in the liner notes as well. There's a lot of links. But this is really important because of the mirror motif that we see within this episode. The only thing they faced was themselves this episode. Oh my gosh, it was beautiful. And Elora has to face the fear of dying again. She looks over the edge and she sees the abyss. And she says, in the immemorial city with the wand broken and me dead. That's where it ends. She knows she goes there and she knows she fails. It's the reason Sorsha tried to hide me and didn't allow Willow to train me. And Willow has his own breakdown. I'm not special. I'm not a great sorcerer. I'm just a farmer who got lucky. Alora is sobbing, crying.
Yeah, she collapses. I don't want to be Alora, Dannon. I just want to go home.
Just want to go home. This just sort of reminds me of like from a, Christianity perspective, the ultimate Garden of Gethsemane. Like, Christ is about to die and he's like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
It's
Let
hard.
this cup pass from me. Yeah, exactly. Spot on. It's true. Wow. Yeah, no, you're totally right. Well, and that's her role, though. That's her role as the goddess. She has this destiny and, she's terrified of it, understandably. And also, when she says, I want to go home, it's tragic because she can't go home because her home is celestial in the way that, if you want to continue to make the comparison to the biblical story, his home was heaven. So, that was the only place for him to go. And her only place to go is to where she belongs, which is
in the full realization of her power.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's hard.
Yep, it is.
There is, and this is the whole metaphor of this whole episode, there is no shortcuts to becoming your full and actualized self. You have to walk across the shattered sea. Ouch. It's hard. It's true. It hurts.
But little sis Kit comes through. She comes
in the clinch. Tough.
Suck it up. I love her. I love that she's still herself, even in this most compassionate moment she has. And I love that this scene echoes what she said about the berry bush at Nockmaar. She says, I believe in you, which is effectively what she was saying when she told her about the berry bush and how beautiful it was. You can do magic. I need you to save Graydon. And you do. And then the same words, she says, I don't know what to do. And she says, yes, you do. We both do. Again, just like she told her before, you know what to do. Throw out the recipe, right?
Yep.
But this time, Kit will go with her, and Kit, frankly, will lead. She'll lead her so that she doesn't have to do this alone.
And I love the look Kit has with Jade, where she sort of is saying like, okay, there's a couple of things happening. So Kit is able to do this because she has fully embraced her love of Jade and the faith that she's found in herself. And to that Joseph Campbell quote, the love is through the eyes, right? You see yourself in your lover's eyes, and you can finally recognize love and the love for the world and compassion for others when you can truthfully love yourself in your lover's eyes. And she now can forward on that compassion for Alora and thus the world, and be what Alora needs and the world needs in this moment. And Jade made her strong because of that. And it's all in that look.
Mm-hmm. And it's fulfilling the promise from, frankly, minutes earlier, where Jade told her she would make these decisions herself.
Yeah.
And she does.
And she does.
And she looks back at Jade to sort of confirm that that's exactly what she's doing.
And that's what you want in partnership.
Yes.
And love. And they hold each other. They touch heads like twins, like the divine twins we talked about at the top of the show. And I want to call out Ty Black because she said, this wasn't a leap of faith. It was a fall. And sometimes when you keep on running into barriers, you need to go limp because the world is not done with you yet. And you need to just go with it. Mm-hmm. Isn't that interesting? Not a leap,
I love it.
But a fall.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And it is, and the fact that it's a fall instead of a leap, that's how it's also the symbolic death.
Yeah, you're falling into death. And instead of leaping into it, the rebirth happens immediately. They're trying to find each other in the chaos of the waterfall, but they pull each other out of the water. And we get this gorgeous Kit leaning down and offering her hand and saying, my lady. And it's it's understanding Alora's Kit understands Alora's place in the universe, and it's leaning into Alora's desire to be a princess.
Yeah, it's
amazing.
seeing her for who she is.
Yeah,
and acknowledging it.
It's acknowledging the truth of Alora, and that she was able to do that is proof.
Yeah. How much has that character grown? And I just want to say this. I think Ruby Cruz is the standout star of this show. Yeah. I really do. I think that her acting
role
and
was
showing
so hard.
Yes, showing the transformation of this character whom people hated. People hated Kit at the beginning of this story. And she has just become the most beautiful, amazing character. And that is really hard to do. So I just am so impressed by her performance.
We love
in
you,
this
Ruby.
Episode especially. Yeah, really, really something. Hats off.
I don't know why I didn't call this out before, but the Immemorial City has twin architecture everywhere.
Yep.
And we have the divine twins walking down the path towards the temple. And as Kit and Alora approach, out pops short-haired, dark boy Eric. He's bound and ready for battle. Literally, buckles everywhere. Okay.
And all up and down his arms.
We have to talk about the Star Wars parallel.
Okay, I'm really excited about this. I actually am super stoked.
I've never read them.
Okay, I have not read them, but I'm very well familiar with them.
The Legends books that I did read made me mad inside.
But I think that's part of it. That's actually part of why I'm excited. So I just want to kind of respond to that. So here's the thing.
Okay, let's talk about it. Okay, who is this? Who are these two?
Jason Solo, Darth Caedus. Is that how you say his name? Caedus? I don't know. Whatever. Caedus is how you spell his name.
Caedus?
I don't know, guys. You're stuck with our bad pronunciation.
Sorry.
It's Jason Solo. Okay. So for anyone who's not aware, in the Legends series, which was the original Star Wars canon before it was decanonized for the sequel trilogy, we had Han and Leia having 3 children. They had twins, Jason and Jaina, and then a younger son named Anakin. And eventually what happened was Jason fell to the dark side. And I think did he kill, was it Luke's son or son? He killed
Mara Jade.
Oh, he killed Mara Jade. That's it.
And then he showed up at her funeral. I did read the Wikipedia, guys.
I know. See, I know. That's the thing is I didn't read them, but I know what happens. Anyway, or at least I kind of know the basics. Anyway, though, the point is that is very, very, very bad. And then the family kind of just gives up on him. And Jaina goes to duel and kill him. Now, there are people who will continue to insist, no, he died redeemed because at the second that he died, he actually sent out a message to protect his wife and child. I don't care. It's redemption through death at best. And frankly, it can also be read as dying unredeemed. And at the hands of his sister, no less. So the point is, regardless of the
what happens when you die at the hands of your twin? Let's talk about that methodologically.
Yes.
Half of you dies.
Yep.
Your heart, like your soul is dead. You have
Jaina
lost
killed
your soul.
herself.
Jaina killed herself. Okay, so briefly, so that's Han Solo, Leia Organa's kid. Han Solo and Leia Organa's kid also died in the sequel trilogy.
Yep.
And we talked about this in the Willow episode. Archetypically, Mad Mardigan is Han Solo, and Leia and Sorsha are princesses who are from dark parents. Eric is archetypically this lost son. And I refuse to believe that Lucasfilm, I love you guys, will kill effectively Han and Leia's kid for a third time.
And that is why I'm actually delighted to see him like this, and delighted to see that that parallel appears to be deliberate, is because I believe that this is the attempt to repair that. I believe that that is what we're going to get here. What we're going to get is, on the surface, we're going to get, Kit, like Jaina, coming in. She's going to have the Chimerian cure us. They're going to have this big duel. But here's the thing. Remember that opening scene with the hands reaching toward one another?
Mm-hmm. They were of the womb. They began together.
They were reaching toward each other, and it rotated, and it put him on the bottom and her on the top, which is where they are now. He is now below, and she is coming in to rescue him. So what I think is going to happen is, at some point in their duel, she will set aside or throw aside her weapon and extend her hand to him.
So
to
very
pull him up.
Luke Skywalker in Return of the Jedi. The idea that you can choose non-violence as an answer.
Exactly.
And love and compassion will win overall.
Yep, but she will not kill him.
Love it.
I love it too. I'm so happy. I'm so excited. It's so funny. I never thought I'd be so thrilled to see a Legends reference, but when I was like, I know what you're doing.
I mean, he looks like him.
Yeah, I was like, you're saving Jason Solo, and by extension, Ben Solo. I love you. I was so excited.
I don't even there's a meta in this that I do need to talk about iterative myth and how Star Wars keeps on telling the same stories over and over again until they fix themselves. I'm going to be thinking about it probably for a while, but it's really interesting. I don't know what to do with myself right now.
What is this show?
All right, let's talk about hair symbolism.
Yeah. I mean, listen, we had this conversation about beards and everything, and I was definitely team long hair, and then he came out looking really, really nice, and I'm like, okay, reconsidering.
I'm good with him either way. It's fine. Yeah. Okay, so hair is the essence of a person. So we saw this when Lich Graydon cut off Alora's hair, when Bavmorda cut off baby Alora's hair to try and send them to another place.
Mm-hmm.
To cut somebody's hair is to have power over them. It's often associated with enlisting in military duty, or joining a monastical order, or joining an evil monastical army. Joining the dark side. Or exile. Exile as well. Long hair is the sign of wildness, freedom, virility. Cutting your hair is renouncing worldly things. AKA Eric is dead. What we said before, he is trapped in the underworld. But this is light and dark. And luckily, we have Alora here, which is a third way, the third child. Here to rescue the siblings.
Yep.
What is this show?
It's everything.
It is everything. I don't think I'm going to get over it very quickly.
Nope. Me neither. Absolutely not getting over this, especially depending on what they give us next week. I don't know how I'm going to function this week.
It has my heart and soul.
It does.
I feel absolutely blessed to be able to witness the creativity, the glorious coming together of all of these forces into alchemy.
Yes. You know what? I do want to mention one more thing about the situation with Kit and Eric.
Okay.
Remember, they are Tanthalos. They are
sacrificial
the House of
twins.
Atreus. That's right, where they consume the children, they consume the family members. And, part of the reason that she will be expected to kill him is because that is what the curse of the family is.
And so to break the curse
one another
is to not kill him.
Exactly.
Oh, I love it.
I love it too.
The show that keeps on giving.
It really
I'm
is.
Sure, there's more. I don't feel like we were able to cover everything.
There was a lot in this episode. A lot.
It was a lot. And thank you to everyone who stuck with us for this whole time. I really, really appreciate all of you. Missy and I have been just having the most glorious ride with this. We look forward to the final episode.
So much. I can't wait. It's going to be a great time.
There's a lot of anxiety generally online, especially about Graydon, because we're like, there's all these signs and symbols. And it feels like we almost feel like Cassandra's. We're like, we've read the portents and symbolically. He's in a bad way.
Listen, we'll feel a lot better when we hear that the show's been renewed, okay? So renew Willow.
Could you renew Willow? We love it so much. We're so happy that more and more people are getting into it and seeing its charm and seeing its wonderfulness and seeing the amazing resonant messages that we have just spent so much time talking about. And we really, really appreciate the What the Force community who's been coming together. The Discord is like always pinging now with theories and threads and cool symbolism and, oh my God, that guy's hot or that girl's amazing. I loved seeing them kiss. Like, it's just fun. And I absolutely have been having the time of my life. So thank you to everyone who has been participating in that. I love you all. That was Missy blowing a kiss.
Yes.
And with that, I feel like we left it all out on the floor as much as we could. So thank you, everyone, for listening. Missy, where can people find you if they are looking to read all of your amazing metas?
Yes, you can find me on Tumblr at All Girls Are Princesses.
Thank you so much for joining us, and we will be back next week for the season finale of Willow. Cheers. Thank you for listening to What the Force. I'm Marie-Claire Gould, your host. Our music is provided by Christy Carew for What the Force. We have a Patreon at patreon.com/whattheforce. We would like to thank all our patrons, especially those who love and are obsessed with What the Force: Melody, Night Huntress, In Wild Space, How Rude, Anna Perez, Neil, Joe Allen D, Christian Luca, Josh Johnson, Scott C, and Susan. Make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube or leave a 5-star review on iTunes or other pod apps. It helps people find the show. Check out our other channel on YouTube, What the Fiction. You can connect with us on Twitter at WT Force Show, What the Force Podcast on Facebook, and our website, whattheforce.ca. We also have a Discord. Links are in the liner notes. Feel free to reach out and start a conversation. Cheers.